Perfect.
Guys, welcome so much. Welcome to a very special CAPS Toronto monthly event. We do this every month. We don't always meet virtually. We usually meet face-to-face. Who knows how long we'll be doing this virtual thing for, but you're learning with us. We're learning together. So what is CAPS? We're the Professional Speaking Association of Choice for Canadian speakers. Our vision is to be the association of choice for experts who speak professionally. And our mission is to raise the profile and professionalism of our members, professional speakers. That could be keynote speakers, workshop speakers, seminar speakers, facilitators, corporate trainers, MCs, humorists, entertainers, you name it. And we are all in this together. This is the place to be for professional speakers here in Canada. But before we officially kick off our meeting, I, on behalf of my Toronto CAPS board, we want to send our best wishes to you and your loved ones during these really unprecedented times. I don't think any of us have seen this before, unless you happen to live through the Great Depression 90 years ago. But this is a really tough time, and we're in this together. So our CAPS chapter is a wonderful group of people who come together to share, learn, grow, and belong. And we want to recognize the contributions of our peers. So what we often do is we like to recognize our first-time guests, and we like to recognize our new members and recognize our board for all their contributions. Let's begin by welcoming our first-time guests. So if this is your first time joining a CAPS meeting or a CAPS Toronto meeting, type first time, or just say first in the chat box, first. And let me bring a poll and see if you are a CAPS member. Let's see, we've got, if you're a CAPS member, type CAPS in the chat box. If you're a member of NSA, type NSA in the chat box. If you're a member of another professional speakers association, type the name of that in the chat box. You see CAPS and NSA. We got CAPS Toronto. All right, we got a wide variety of professional speakers associations members in the house. Now, not everyone is a member of a professional speaking association, but hopefully this will give you a good taste of who we are and what we do. I also want to recognize our brand new member, Sam Dema. He is our newest member of CAPS Toronto. He just signed up this month, and hopefully you're online right now, Sam, so you can see this shout out that we're giving to you. We got some great chat going on, a lot of congratulations, a lot of people saying woohoo, awesome. I see Bala Iyengar from the Professional Speakers Association of India. So it looks like we've got a potential competition, maybe from Bala Iyengar, maybe Tom Abbott from Singapore, who's the furthest person from CAPS Toronto, from Toronto. I'm really curious about that. So Bala's here in Bangalore. We got a wide variety of professional speakers and our guests from all over the country. I'm seeing a message from Shahab, one of our members in Toronto, one of our board members. And as a reminder, we're doing this in Zoom webinar, and there is a difference between Zoom webinar and Zoom meetings, as we're all learning this together. With Zoom webinar, we have attendees and we have panelists. And attendees, we can't see or hear each other. The only way we can interact is through the chat box. When you type in the chat box, you can either choose to send messages to panelists only, or you can choose to send messages to all attendees. So please send messages to all attendees. You can continue to chat in the chat box. We have dedicated volunteers from our board, Francis Fernando and Rina Ruvanelli, who are going to be monitoring the chat box. If you have specific questions you'd like to ask to our panelists, feel free to use the Q&A box as well. So alternate if you like, but we've got people who are watching both. And you will only be able to see the panelists as they're speaking. All right. What else can I tell you? I think that's pretty much it as far as the Zoom settings go. We know that this is your first time for many of you using Zoom webinars. Hopefully this will be a good introduction for you. And if you're an expert, we're hoping to hear your feedback as well. So type in the chat box one thing that you're looking forward to do, one thing that you're most looking forward to after this social distancing, physical distancing is over. Type one word, let us know. Hairdresser, hugs, dining out. What is this CAPS thing? Very, very good. Very good, Sanjay. Very funny. Hugging Susan Luke, massage therapy. You got some great answers. You got some great answers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So you're going to see our title screen. You know, we're obviously living in unprecedented times, and who better to consult with than some leading experts to help us through what we're going through. Because many of us have seen our calendars evaporate, no matter what kind of role we have, especially if we're full-time speakers. And who better to turn to than industry experts in the meeting and events industry, as well as some veteran speakers who can walk us through. But before we get to our expert panel, let's take a look at some of the people from our Toronto board. You know, these guys are real heroes. Every single one of them is a hero in my books, because we've come together and spent countless hours putting together sort of a crisis management and contingency planning endeavors to make sure that we can make everything work smoothly and appropriately. So how about a round of applause, please, in the chat box for our CAPS Toronto board members. Let's recognize them, our amazing volunteers who are spending all their time making things like this event happen. And I also want to recognize our national board members, because CAPS Toronto is affiliated with the National Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. Here are our big heroes, the CAPS Toronto board for 2020. But also here are the images and the names of people who serve on the national board of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. So we've got a number of them here in the chat box, including Greg Schinkel, the CAPS national president. And we also have a number of CAPS national members who are part of our Toronto chapter. So let's give them a shout out as well. We've got Michael Flint, we've got Beverly Byerman King, and we've got Jennifer Spear, who is she's going to be introducing Deborah Gardner. So here's a run through of what we're going to do tonight. Deborah Gardner is going to speak. We're going to get some presidential remarks from CAPS National President Greg Schinkel. We'll have our panel discussion, as well as an open Q&A period. And during the open Q&A period, around 8 o'clock, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions in the chat box, and then Stephen and I will read them out to our panelists. And then after 8:30, when we conclude our prepared presentation and the panel discussion, and we finish up our Q&A, there'll be an opportunity for more mixing and mingling when we promote all the remaining attendees to panelists, and we'll get the Brady Bunch style Zoom meeting going. I hope you guys enjoy that. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Jennifer Spear, who is our CAPS Toronto national representative on Meetings Mean Business. She's also CAPS National Programming Director. So as the CAPS representative of Meetings Mean Business, that means that she's a part of an advocacy group for the industry. So please join me in welcoming Deborah Gardner, who's going to be introduced by Jennifer Spear.
All right, thank you, Ron. And I figured out how to unmute myself. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited about tonight. What a fabulous program that has been put together. So thank you so much to the entire Toronto board for helping put this together. It's just a fabulous collection, and it's just so nice to see everybody here. And we have over 200 people registered for the event, so I'm just so thrilled. And it is an honor and a pleasure for me to be able to introduce our first speaker. I met Deborah several years ago. We shared the stage at an MPI event, and then we shared a drink afterwards, and we have been sharing both on a number of occasions. And I've seen Deborah speak many times, and I have to tell you, every time she delivers. So I have to let you know that the Meeting Industry News Tracker is in the virtual house. Deborah Gardner is here, spanning 3 decades in the meetings and events industry. Deborah is better known as the Triple Threat due to her longtime academic and real-world experience as a meeting planner, hotel executive, and speaking professional, which makes her the proven voice of the business meetings and events. And it doesn't stop there. Deborah is also an ambassador for the Meetings Mean Business Coalition. She's past president of the Arizona Meeting Professionals International Chapter and recognized as one of just 7 speakers worldwide with the Certified Meeting Professional designation, while helping hospitality leaders and their teams to define their unique meeting and event opportunities. But today, understandably, she's extremely busy helping them get through this difficult time. You may have been delighted and entertained by Deborah before, as I have when she presented at the 2016 CAPS convention, or at NSA Influence for the last 4 years in a row, forewarning us about these types of difficult times. Or maybe you even belong to her very well-liked Facebook group that has over 1,400 speakers worldwide.
Do I want to do that now?
And it's called the Meetings and Event Industry News for Speakers. And if you're not in that group, then I'm sure you have some FOMO. So today, Deborah, who is also Mrs. Arizona 2020, will share the state of the meetings and events industry news amidst COVID-19, because she believes that every one of you can benefit when knowing more about your clients, when once again joining forces to create great meetings and events. So I want you to welcome our virtual speaker all the way from the state of Arizona in the US, Deborah Gardner, CMP.
Thank you, Jennifer. I so appreciate that fabulous introduction that I wrote about myself, but it's always a pleasure to see you, and virtual hugs to everyone in Toronto and actually around the world. I know we've got several different people here, and I am just ecstatic to have this opportunity, especially during a time where we need it the most. You know, it's very weird right now. It's very unsettling. I think this has been the longest 2 to 3 weeks. It feels like 2 to 3 years of what we've been going through. One day your calendars are full as professional speakers, and the next day they are empty. And that has been extremely devastating, not only on a business standpoint of view, but also on a personal standpoint of view. There are over 7.8 billion people worldwide, and everyone is experiencing uncertainty. I think the 3 major things that are still constant, though, are, well, we've got to stand 6 feet away from each other. And I think you've been joining a lot of video conferencing lately. And of course, we're out of toilet paper. Maybe not in Canada, but we certainly are in the US. But overall, no doubt that this world has changed, and it's going to change. People have changed, behaviors have changed, and also the way you do business. You know, the person that actually says it best that I've seen recently comes from Michael Ryan, the executive director from the World Health Organization. And he said, all countries need to review their strategies now. Well, it's not only the countries that have to review their strategies, but businesses like you and I have to also re-strategize as well, because it is a completely different world. What worked yesterday is not going to work today. And what we have been dealing with these past couple weeks, actually I put it into 4 different phases. One, there's the fear phase, there's the understanding phase, and then there's the action phase and the recovery phase. Those 4 phases is what we are actually going through now. And it seems as though most of us are stuck or staying in the fear phase. So today, what I'd like to do is I would like to share with you some insights to the meetings and events industry that's going on right now, because my goal is to get you from the fear stage to the understanding stage. And once you get to the understanding stage of what is going on in the meetings world, then it's going to be easier for you to strategize and start putting things into action, because once we get to the recovery, you're going to be busier than ever before. And so Today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you some graphics, some data, some statistics and forecasts, because I love that part. But the reason why I want to share this with you is because this is what your customers, this is what your clients are looking at right now, and they're going to be strategizing themselves as well. So why not everyone be on the same page? But here's the best part. When I'm finished at the end here, about 30 minutes or so, I'd like to give you my email and my contact information so you can contact me directly if you would like to have these slides. I'd like to send them to you along with some other pertinent information and resources as well. So I'll give that information to you at the end. But in the meantime, let's stick with the basics by getting the pen and paper out and really write down the notes that are going to help you go from the fear phase to the understanding phase so that you can start putting things into action and ready for the time that we're going to be in recovery stages and being busier than ever before. So let's get started. First of all, I'd like for you to understand the history behind what has been going on in the meetings industry and the economy as well. See, in the meetings industry, this isn't our first rodeo. We've been through these before. Yes, this is a different animal, and yes, this is a beast of an animal, but we've been through this before. And I call these the small interpretations of what we have gone through in the past, but majority of the time, we have been very lucky. We've been living the dream, in other words, for months on end, doing really well in the meetings industry and in your business. The two interruptions that have been happening in the past, of course, was 2000, which was the 9/11 incident, and then 2008 was the financial crisis. But now, COVID-19 actually is worse than both of these incidences combined. So I call these two small interruptions because COVID-19 is one big beast. It has been very different for us than ever before in the meetings industry. And yet I want to say how proud I am of the speaking profession, really staying on top of what's been going on. This is the first time I've ever seen this, and I want to say congratulations to each and every one of you for being so involved. But understanding that the meetings industry, the events industry has been this through before. They know what to handle, they know how to handle it, but yet every situation is different, especially when it comes to epidemics. You know, there's 7 coronaviruses, and it seems as though, again, this one is one of our worst. But Canada in particular has had to deal with something very similar, which was back in March of 2003, called SARS. And SARS had actually hit the Canadian market harder than the US, in particular in Toronto, where majority of you are. The difference is, though, is that the epicenter was Toronto, kind of like New York is the epic right now, and didn't flourish over into the other cities as much like it is now. So that's why COVID-19 is much bigger than SARS, but also the meetings industry is treating it very, very similar. But here's the thing I want you to take a look at. The meetings industry starts with where they are actually going to have their meetings, which happens to be in hotels. So what I want to do is share with you the market performance with hotels. It's not the dates they look for first. It's of course not the speakers they want to hire first, but where is the location? So I want to show you this report that your clients are actually looking at right now that came out on March 28th. You can see that the hotel industry has been hit, and it's been in the negative of the 80s. Montreal, probably the worst of them all at this point. And this is the RevPAR. Now, what is RevPAR? RevPAR is all about the per available room. It's a metric performance system and calculated for hotels to come up with an average room rate. Not something that you really need to know, but just so you can understand that the hotels throughout the country of Canada is in the negatives at this time. Another look at a graphic that your clients are looking at is the occupancy for those type of hotels in those cities. And unfortunately, right now, it is the lowest it's been in a long, long time, especially Montreal and being in the single digits. And it's not a good thing right now, but it's understandable because a lot of the hotels are closed. And of course, you know, the virus has spread from one country to one area city up to another as compared to SARS back in 2003. You know, the industry of the hospitalities, there are actually 1 in 10 people that work in the hospitality industry. In 2017, there was a record of 212 million people working in the hospitality industry globally. We're 3 years later and those numbers are definitely higher. And unfortunately, again, those numbers have gone down because a lot of furloughs, a lot of layoffs that have been happening. And it's not going to get any better this week. I just got a call this morning from one hotel, actually 3 hotels, with an average of 1,200 people that will be furloughed from today on. The Ritz-Carlton in Toronto are going to be closing their doors this week as well. It's devastating and it's continuing. So these numbers that you're looking at right now from the hotel standpoint of view aren't any different than it was yesterday, but it is going to actually come down probably a little bit more eventually. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And a lot of these hotel people that work or even throughout the hospitality industry have spouses or family members. So you can imagine the devastation that has to happen with a family that actually works in the hospitality industry. In the United States, it's very similar as well, of course. Just a couple weeks ago, I was at the Ohio NSA chapter, and I was sharing these numbers of the top 10 destinations for future meetings in the United States. I know many of you travel to the United States, and this was very exciting to determine where you actually were going to be traveling, where those meetings and conferences were most likely going to take place. And you can see from this graphic, New York and Chicago were the top 2. Could you imagine now? They'll probably be at the bottom of this list in the coming reports because especially New York being a hot spot. And it's just amazing to us how it can just flip in just a week or 2. So why am I sharing all of this with you? Well, here's the truth. Besides the economy, you actually are in the meetings industry. Besides the economy, the meetings industry dictates what you do. And it does. So these numbers that we take a look at performance-wise really helps us tell us what is going to be happening, where it's going to be happening, and how we need to understand what they do so that we can move to the action phase. And so because of this right now, the sad story is we've got empty lobbies, we've got empty hallways, restaurants are deserted, parking lots as well are empty, and all the doors are closing even this week. Here's one general manager that couldn't even get into her own hotel because the doors were closed, and obviously she had to get through a window because I believe she left her laptop there and she needed that at home. So this is the sad case. This is the realization of what is happening right now, and we are in the midst of it in the meetings and events industry as we speak. But I want to also share with you some stats that can help you understand what has been going on with your clients and where we need to go with this when you are strategizing your business from today on. There were a couple questions, actually there were 5, and I'd like to go over these with you just so you can see how they are structuring their meetings. For example, have you canceled, postponed, and rescheduled meetings or events due to COVID-19? Well, these key findings are very interesting. You can see majority of them have canceled. They definitely have prevailed in that area. Associations have definitely canceled and just going on with their annual meeting for next year. Regionals meetings are going to definitely be rescheduled. Corporate as well had to cancel as quickly as possible. 65% actually canceled at this point. 40% postponed, but yet have already rescheduled, leaving more than 60% still working on rescheduling. And what's holding them up for rescheduling? Well, first of all, they're trying to get a hold of their sales contact at the hotel or any type of venue, but unfortunately they're not there. So the general manager or the front desk office has to handle these cancellations that are coming in. So it's taking a slower effect than usual. And on another hand, there's no decisions that have been made. They want to wait and see what is going to be happening in the next week or two. So it really depends on when they're going to be rescheduling. Question number 2 says, if you have canceled your event or are working on doing so, how would you describe that process? Again, these questions are actually been taken by over 532 people, all of North America, Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And North Star is the one that did this actual survey. 6 out of 10 of these meeting professionals said it was actually easier than expected to actually cancel their event. But almost 30% said it was very difficult. The reason why it was difficult was because when this first broke, they were sticking with their cancellation and attrition clauses with their clients. But as things worsened, they actually eased it up and totally understood from here on out. Question number 3 was, how would you describe your circumstances in seeking to postpone and reschedule your events? Well, 2 out of 10 meeting professionals, actually rescheduling was more difficult. And the reason why it's more difficult is because there's a lack of space. Those that are trying to reschedule for Q3 and Q4, the space is just not there. And the last couple of years, actually the hotels in particulars have actually been building without ballroom space. So there's been a compression between those that don't have ballroom space and those that are trying to get other venues like stadiums or like concert halls to utilize for their space. There's just no space out there. So it's really pushing the business farther out because of it. And also, I'm sure you've heard on the news that a lot of these hotels are being utilized as field hospitals. These field hospitals are actually being remodeled from a hotel room to a hospital situation. And because of it, the maintenance crews are redoing the entire rooms of these hotels. They've had to take the carpets out. They've had to put in new outlets and new curtains. Everything's being remodeled in these type of hotels that are actually closed. So when it's time to open, it's going to have to be, we're going to have to be a lot more patient for when these hotel rooms are going to be revamped back into guest accommodations. Considering the current circumstances, if you rescheduled, were your new arrangements or agreements more favorable than in your original contract? Well, luckily, it's actually been the same. And maybe some of you have seen that too, that have been rescheduled for next year or for Q3 and Q4, that your contracts have just been rolled over. It's kind of the same with when they are confirming with hotels or other venues too. And lastly, question number 5. In what month at the earliest will you reschedule or plan to hold future meetings or events? This is probably the most important question that you all have been wondering this entire time. Well, majority, 54%, have moved their meetings to Q3 and Q4, but most of them are going to go into 2021. And that is good to know so that you know how to strategize and see how when your clients are going to contact you or when you're going to be able to talk with them again. You know we're going to have to be a little bit more patient because it's a little bit farther out than we probably all ever wanted to expect. So coping with the loss of business. This is what your clients are dealing with right now. They are making some major complex decisions right now. They're having all kinds of meetings with their stakeholders and their owners. They're looking at scenarios from what to do now with their risk assessments to also what happens when the meetings do come back. Will people show up? Will they allow people that are vaccinated to actually fly? So there's a lot of questions that they're going through and that they're having to deal with that's bigger and better than ever before. And even on top of that, will they have a job when these all turn around? I know some of you are probably reaching out to your customers right now, and that is admirable because they need to hear you, they need to hear your voice, but yet they still don't know if they're going to have a job. So chances are you can be dealing with someone else in the next couple weeks. So the key here is just stay in touch with your customers and see what's happening with them at this time, just in case. But overall, the people that are the most stressed, that have to deal with furloughs and layoffs and pay cuts, are the leaders of the industry. Of all the years, as Jennifer said, I've been in this for 30 years, and this is not my natural hair color. I've never seen them so emotional. They're very emotional about what is going on. So through that roller coaster of emotions and stress and dealing with their employees, they've got a lot to do in the next couple of weeks, and hoping when we get a chance to turn around. Probably the one that's actually having the most meetings right now are weddings. Weddings have not stopped. So we're looking at a lot of different companies and businesses, like the linen business, the AV business, are still a little bit busy because of weddings, which is really good news. So what does this look like, at least in the United States? I know Canada follows the United States as far as the key performance indicators, outlooks. In 2020, we were hoping, we knew that it wasn't going to be it was going to be a non-growth year, and we were hoping for better business numbers than this that you're looking at right now for 2020. Especially the supply and demand, we were expecting at least 2% higher. The occupancy maybe 0.3%, but it wasn't going to be bad. Maybe a non-growth year, but not bad. But as now you can see in the United States, that we are definitely in the negative numbers. And I know Canada is right around there. I don't have the numbers for Canada right now. And I also know that we have somebody from India here, and we don't have those numbers yet as well. As a matter of fact, India, you had a record-breaking year in 2019. And now I know your numbers are probably going to be very similar to the US as well. But the good news, as you can probably see, is what we are forecasting for 2021. And again, that is because everything is being pushed into the next year. So you're going to be definitely busy. At least we're counting on you being very busy, and then definitely in the next coming year. The mainland of China is how we know. Right now, their hotels are opening up. 87% of their hotels are open. And so we're hoping to follow that trend at the same time while we're dealing with COVID-19. So now that you know and understand, I'm hoping, where your clients are what they're doing, what they're willing to do, what are they dealing with at this time. Now I'd like to take you into the future of the meetings. Dealing with, because of course we don't want you to deal with the virus, or we don't want you to have to deal with no toilet paper either. So what we did, my company and I, we contacted as many hospitality leaders to the front line, to the back of the house. We have a database of 40,000, and we shot some questions out there to help you in the speaking community. And sure enough, we were able to get some feedback. So now I'd like to share with you what I call Corona Light predictions. And the Corona Light predictions all have to do with your strategy, the phase of action. I want to put you into action, and I've got a quick five areas that I'd like to share with you at this time. And here we go. Number one, meetings will look different. You can count on that. As soon as the leaders reassemble their teams, it's going to look different for your clients when they start calling hotels or venues for their actual meetings or conventions or even conferences at the same time. So what does it look like? Well, first of all, boutique and independent hotels will most likely open up first. They are the big winners here because they're the ones that are going to be able to get those SBA loans for 500 employees and less. The big brands are going to actually have to take their time to open up because they're the ones that have the employees in every department that they're going to have to get up and running. So what does that look like? Well, the front line interactions. Are they going to be wearing masks at the front desk when you check in? The food handling. Well, we know there's not going to be any buffets. Those are probably going to be extinct. Housekeeping. How are they going to handle your laundry, the sheets off the beds? Are they going to be wearing gloves and masks? The union workers, those rules are going to definitely change. Seat configurations. Instead of setting up a ballroom of rounds of 10, are we going to see rounds of 4? And of course, how are they going to keep their employees safe? Used to be technology was the #1 concern on a global basis. Today, as you can see, it has to do with safety. On a planner or a client standpoint of view, well, safety is big with them as well. They're going to have to make sure that their attendees are going to be as safe as possible and among each other as well. So does that mean they're going to have gloves and mask dispensers available to when they walk into the room? Are they going to have instant tests for those that might have a cough? Will you have to come with a doctor's note if you've got the sniffles? And also, beyond safety, they're going to be looking at their contracts a lot closer now as well, especially their force majeure clause. You know, 73% of clients do not have a force majeure clause, and they certainly will now, and it's one of the most misunderstood type of clauses that are out there. And hardly any of them have anything about the epidemic, any disease control. So this is going to change, and you're going to want to keep on top of this with them when you're having conversations with them. The attendee engagement, you know, they've been pushing, the attendees want to experience with each other and interact with each other. Will this happen again? These are all questions that your clients are going through right now to determine what their meetings are going to look like. So you as speakers, the conversation has to change with your clients, especially when it comes with contracts. Instead of them sending the contract, sign here and send back, now you're going to be able to pick up the phone and have an actual conversation and reviewing every line item of your contracts. And rightly you should, because I've seen on social media time and time again, well, I didn't get my deposit back, or they want my deposit back. Well, this is where you need to understand your contracts much more than ever before. So do expect that contracts are going to be tighter. You're going to have more flexibility as well. And you as well need to know that safety has to come first. Well, how do you do that? Well, you're the one that's up on stage. And if you are presenting at a breakfast meeting and you see someone choking in the first row, well, what are you going to do as a speaker since you have the microphone? You're holding the microphone. What actions are you going to be able to take? I want you to become more valuable than ever before for your clients. And the only way to do that is to let them know your safety requirements that you'd like to put in as well. Maybe it's just a matter of knowing you have CPR. They would love to know that you know CPR. Or maybe do what I do. Now, I want to give you a little bit of an idea of being creative with safety. Right now, I am not wearing this necklace. This actually isn't a necklace. It looks like a necklace, but it is not a necklace. It is actually a safety device. Whenever I'm on stage, and I always let my clients know this, I will wear this necklace. If I see anything happening in the room up on stage, all I have to do is press the back of this necklace, and it will contact 5 people immediately. 911, the venue security. It will also help with contact the client if she's not in the, he or she's not in the room, and other people that I want to put on there as well. So what safety features or ideas, and how are you going to become more valuable to your clients, knowing that that is going to be top of mind for them? So those are just some examples. Next, virtual stage goes mainstream. Yep, we know virtual is going to be part of a lot of things that we're going to be doing in the near future. But virtual, or is it not to virtual? We need to find out, is it really going to take over face-to-face? Well, you know, you do have 4 bosses. 4 bosses. You have the stakeholder that actually signs your check. You've got your client that hires you. You've got sponsors that are going to become more involved than ever before in the meetings. And then you've got your audience. So when it comes to your audience, deciding virtual or not, it's deciding what's best for your audience. Is it face-to-face or is it through a screen? These things are going to be part of the conversation with your clients. And the budget shift will happen because of virtual. So maybe the sponsor will be a lot more involved with that area to help. But according to American Express Global Business, virtual has gone up 10%, but the cost model for virtual has gone down 70% compared to having an on-site meeting. So that is actually good news, to where I know a lot of meeting companies and organizations will start doing more virtual. And the virtual might be virtual meeting as a pattern that will work for some organizations. But one thing about virtual, companies want to control it. Speakers should not be the producers or the hosts. The conferences want control so that they know the equipment works. They might send it to you, a box with your equipment, their equipment at home, so they make sure that you are wired up correctly on their terms. So they'll have a lot of control over this more than speakers will. And when it comes to getting attention virtually for your audience, well, it's time to take a look at our descriptions, our program descriptions, and making sure we are marketing them correctly in order to promote the program more. It's easier when it's face-to-face, but virtually there's a lot of distractions, and then we need to take a look at that. Also, recordings. Before, it used to be speakers would say, well, this is my livelihood, so I won't be doing any recordings. Well, now you may not have a choice. They will be recording and they will be utilizing it. So that's another conversation you want to have with them. But as far as where to virtual, there could be many places. One will be at the airport, most likely. There will be airport virtual rooms. You'll actually go to the airport, but you'll sit in a room and do your virtual program there. I think that's going to be very interesting. But overall, virtual will allow us to tighten up our agendas. The agenda will have to be very clear. It'll have to be very crisp in order to get the audience's attention. So you're going to see more of a streamline of what agendas are going to look like. But here's the key. You keynote speakers out there love to be the opening keynote. Well, now the challenge is to try to be the closing keynoter. This is where they want the strongest keynoter, like a celebrity status. They want everybody to stay throughout the conference, through the breakouts, anything that they can to keep everybody's attention and saving the best for last. So it's kind of a flip from face-to-face type of meetings to virtual. Overall, I want to say that there's going to actually be some features that will be added to the virtual world as well, which is going to make it easier for speakers, because right now I can't see you, I can't hear you, I can't read your face. Well, those type of features will probably be changing in the near future, where you can actually clap, you can laugh, you can send emojis. You're going to be able to have that human to human connection the more that virtual comes into our world. And once it does, boy, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good because we're going to be able to have different types of connections back and forth and interactions with each other. Number 3, sustainability is going to have a massive rise. We already been talking about climate control and design, meeting designs, but now staging, power surges, waste management is going to be escalated more than ever. On a speaker's part, well, it's about, do you need those handouts? Are you going to just have paperback books? Maybe you need to start putting them more online. They're going to be looking for the sustainability portion of your business. And how does that look? Well, sustainability as far as meeting-wise, well, because of COVID-19, we're going to probably see more local meetings taking place for a little bit. First of all, we're going to see the leisure, the BT, business travelers start coming back. The meetings will start coming back. The confidence has to be there from the attendee standpoint of view. And because of it, there may be more local meetings than ever before. And also sustainability as opposed to flying everywhere. They're starting to take a look at railways, cars, and buses. The cities that have the most rail access will probably be at the top of the future cities to be chosen for meetings and events, because we want people to start utilizing different forms of transportation. And rails, cars, and buses will allow that to happen. Right now, there's a rail track being actually built between Las Vegas and LA just for that purpose alone that's already been into motion. But could you imagine going to a bus depot to go to an actual meeting, and in that bus depot, there's a Starbucks there. So we'll probably see some upgraded bus depots in the near future. Number 4, creativity will win. Your clients are going to be looking at what's going to allow you to stand out. There's a lot of change going on right now. And those that have the creative minds are the ones that are going to be really making it in this industry. They want creativity. They want you to take your brand to a new level and sell and market in a favorable way for the audience. You know, right now during COVID-19, McDonald's actually rebranded their arches. You know, the arches actually coincide with each other, but now they're away from each other to represent the standing 6 feet away. Well, the customers didn't quite like that. It was more of a personal brand, not a favorable brand for them. But on the other hand, Burger King actually released their recipe for their Whopper burger because everybody's at home making home meals. So Burger King turned out to be a big winner when it came to rebranding during this time. So virtual or being creative with virtually, you want to be careful with that. Yes, everybody wants to be on virtual, but is that what's going to allow you to stand out? Think of creativity when you're strategizing your business. And last but not least, relationships. We all know how important our clients are relationship-wise. Well, we're going to be tested more than ever on this. I want you to now think about your strategy and build loyalty. It's all about building loyalty. And of course, right now, many of you, I see reaching out to a lot of the customers, sending notes, sending gifts, and that will pay off. As a matter of fact, that happened to Ted Jansen from the Ohio NSA chapter. He actually sent an article to a client to just check in to see how things were going. And the client was so moved by him reaching out that he actually gave him the RFP proposal for a meeting that was changed for next year. So you just never know, but my motto right now is sell to please, not for fee. So have the mindset that you want to provide some acts of kindness to them because they are going through a lot, as I mentioned earlier. But until then, what you want to do is embrace the biggest stage room right now, the room of improvement for you, because your clients are going to want you to come back, and they're going to want your products and services more than ever. And you want to be ready for that to happen. And you'll want to improve what you do and where you're going with your business. Here's an example. I'd like to give each and every one of you an assignment that was relayed on what happened a couple years ago. Martha Stewart was actually presenting at a conference of decision makers, 1,400 decision makers. Throughout the conference and through her first keynote speech, when she got up on her stage, she kept calling them party planners. Now, who do you think had the lowest evaluation score? So, well, you probably guessed it right. However, Martha Stewart is not the only one that calls their clients party planners. 79% of these so-called party planners, when they go out into the world, hear the same thing, or they also hear the word meeting planner. I think a good homework assignment for you right now, what we should really be calling our clients. Our clients need more respect. They need to be appreciated. And yet we're calling them just their title alone, which is just a perception of them being a party planner or a meeting planner. It really rubs them the wrong way. Are they going to correct you? No, they're not going to do that. But let's think of it this way. Would you like to be called a public speaker or a professional speaker? I think you know the answer to that as well. So why not, instead of calling them meeting planners or event planners, let's start calling them meeting and event professionals, especially on your website. I see it all the time on speaker websites up in the navigation bar, meeting planner. Well, you might not even need a navigation bar or a meeting planner page that has all the information on there, because whoever goes to your website is going to be some kind of influencer. But terminology as simple as their title. This is something that we really need to start paying attention to. And I hear it all the time. And I would love for everybody to really grasp their title so that they can connect. It's all about bonding and connecting. You will bond and connect with them if we address them respectfully and appreciative while we say meeting and event professional. Here's another example of terminology in the meetings industry. I'd like for you to take a look at this and put in the chat box, what is this? I'd like for you to share what you actually think this is. Well, some of you might think it's a podium. In reality, it's called a lectern. Who knew? An electron actually sits on a podium, not a riser. So these are just some examples that I'd like to share with you to where terminology is a great homework assignment for you right now while we are waiting to really get a chance to talk to our clients. And the best way you can do that is just Google meeting and event industry terminology. And you'll see a whole list of there that you can review on your own. So take advantage of this time to improve on yourself. Something as simple as the terminology that is needed. And also, I know Jennifer is going to talk about this very soon, but GMID Day is coming around the corner. And she's going to explain to you the Meetings Mean Business Coalition and how you can connect with your clients and continue to build those relationships just by attending GMID Day. So, the other thing I want to mention is taking care of yourself. You probably knew that was going to come, but staying healthy, being, positive, having the right attitude is going to be important, and understanding that your clients are going to want you to come back. So right now is the time to start putting your strategies together into action. Yes, this is the Canadians' emergency response plan. This is something that we all are going through right now. even you in Canada. But here's the thing, meeting and event professionals, they have emergency response plans too. So this is a good practice for you to understand what you're going through and what they're going through. And when the meetings come back again, which they will, you're going to want to ask them, what is the emergency response plan? And you're going to have a better understanding now that you are going through it personally as well. So defining the moment that we are going through right now with COVID-19 is very, very big. And it's been impactful. The GDP, it's been impactful for each and every one of us. We need to start making sure that we take care of ourselves so we can get back on the traveling road, or also having more virtual events than ever before. And I want you to take care of your family, taking good care of your family like I am. And the reason why, you're going to spend a lot of time with them now, but once things start turning around, you're going to be on that traveling road and you're going to be busier than ever before. Everything has changed. The world has changed. People have changed. Behaviors have changed. And now the way we work is changing. What strategy are you going to be putting into place now that you have a better understanding? Being patient while things come around is going to be key, but I can guarantee you it is going to come around. I get the question all the time, when is it going to come around? When is this crisis over? Well, that's really not the question, but instead, we are one day closer for this to be done. So I hope you are prepared for a big year coming up. I want you to prepare so that you are not fearful of this anymore, and that you understand what your clients are going and now put it into action, because when recovery comes, you're going to be busier than ever before. Be safe and follow the guidelines and do your part in reducing the spread. I want to thank each and every one of you, the members. I know you're not going to be seeing each other face to face yet, but there you are. It will happen, and I know your board is counting on it too. So virtual hugs to each and every one of you, and thank you so much for allowing me to be with you here today.
So thank you, Deborah. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your information and insights about what's going on in the industry and what we can do in our biz. There have been some questions that were put into the question box. We're going to save those until the end. So Deborah, if you're able to hang around, you'll be able to watch the next, watch the panel presentation, and then we can go into the Q&A. So thank you very much. I think probably one of the hardest things for speakers is when we finish the presentation, when we cannot see our audience and we cannot hear the applause. But thank you, Deborah. Much appreciate you being here. I just wanted to take a couple of seconds just to talk to you about Meetings Doing Business and GMID, as Deborah mentioned. Meetings Doing Business is a coalition of the meetings industry, and it's different associations and organizations across the industry, across Canada. And Meetings Doing Business is the advocacy arm, and I am honored to represent CAPS on the board of Meetings Doing Business Canada. And we have, if you go to the website, meetingsdoingbusiness.ca, you will see that we've got over 100 supporters online. You'll also see that we do have resources on there for COVID-specific resources if you want to look at that. Now, up until a few weeks ago, one of our biggest challenges was thinking about how we were going to be able to communicate to those outside of our industry, the importance and the impact of the meetings and events industry on our economies and on the economy and on our communities, the economies within our communities. And now we're pretty sure that it's realized, if it wasn't before, in terms of the importance of meetings and events, what it means when we cannot meet together. And prior to that, Ron, if you could just do the next slide, please. we would look for information to share. And so this next slide, the one we got from information from an international study, and it showed there we go. The economic impact of meetings and events. So this was done internationally, and they had divided up Canada. It was done in about 2017. And so we could see and we could communicate things like there was $33 billion of direct spending in impacts, that over 200,000 people work directly in meetings and events. And it's not necessary that our jobs might be included in that 200,000, but we would communicate these things, but we didn't know exactly what the impact was, but we are certainly seeing it now. And you will see up there, we say GMID 20. And so GMID is Global Meetings Industry Day, and it is something that is celebrated every year, where we recognize, promote, and celebrate the importance of this industry. And we're still gonna do that this year. We're just gonna do it a little differently. Ron, if you could switch to the next one. GMID has always been about uniting our industry, and this year we're still going to do it. We are just going to do it virtually. And I'm going to ask that everybody go to the website gmidgoesvirtual.com and please register. On April 14th, we are going to break the world's record for the largest virtual conference, and we need everybody here to sign up, to register, and to participate. We need you to share it with your networks, share it with your other associations that you belong to, share it with organizations, your clients, your colleagues, your cousins. We need you to share it with everybody because we want to break this record. We believe that it's extremely positive that even when we can't meet in person, that this industry can come together and can accomplish really big things together. And I can tell you Guinness is very excited in this as well. It's a very positive story for them to be able to say that we have been able to break records even during a pandemic. So I'm going to ask that all of you please go and register. So the actual breaking of the world record takes 30 minutes. Right after that, Meetings Doing Business Canada, we're hosting a virtual event where we're going to have industry leaders from across the industry talking about the reality, the recovery, and the response needed. So I'm counting on all of you to register and to share. So thank you very much. If there's any questions about that, please feel free to either enter them into the chat or reach out to me on your own. I would be thrilled to talk to you about this. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Ron, and I'm so excited about the next part of this program. Ron?
Thank you, Jennifer. So what we like to do is here at CAPS Toronto, we also like to recognize our certified speaking professionals. Any certified speaking professionals in the house, type in the chat box CSP, because we've got a number of amazing certified speaking professionals, the highest recognized designation for speakers in our industry. And we've got a number of them in our chapter, a number of CSPs. So I'm seeing we've got a number of CSPs from all over the country, and here are the ones in our own chapter. We also want to recognize our own Susan Luke Evans, who's not just a CSP, but also a Global Speaking Fellow, which is the highest earned designation in the global speaking industry as part of the Global Speakers Federation. And we also want to recognize the Hall of Fame speakers who are in the Toronto chapter. So if you are a Hall of Fame speaker, I see Sanjay Nath is an attendee. Anyone else in here? We've got a number of Hall of Fame speakers in the Toronto chapter, and we love to recognize and celebrate our own in our chapter. Tom Stoyan as well. Hey, thank you, Perry. All right, so shout out to the founder of CAPS himself. And speaking of the Global Speaking Federation, which I mentioned earlier, you know what? We've got a lot of professional speaking associations around the world, and we're all part of the Global Speaking Federation. Whether you're a member of CAPS, you're a member of NSA, or even a member of the Professional Speaking Association of India, we are all members of this association. We're all in this together. Now, what we're doing next is it's going to be a great opportunity to hear from the CAPS national president himself. So let me go right now to cut my screen and allow Greg to share his screen. And let me introduce Greg, because Greg is the national president of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. As I mentioned, he's the owner of 2 training companies in partnership with his wife, Robin. He's the author or co-author of several leadership books, including What Great Supervisors Know and Employees Not Doing What You Expect. He also hosts the Leader Feeder podcast, blog, and video series. And Greg and his team of instructors focus on training frontline supervisors, team leaders, and managers in manufacturing, distribution, and operations on how to engage and motivate their teams to drive business results. Talk with Anish. Now, Greg's going to talk about how to deal with the disruption, how we as speakers in Canada can deal with the disruption from COVID-19. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, Greg Schinkel, CSP.
Hey, thanks, Ron. I really appreciate that. And I'm only going to take a few minutes because I know our panel discussion is coming up next. So first of all, greetings to all CAPS members, all non-CAPS members, all meeting industry participants, all Global Speaking Federation members, countries. Thanks for joining us tonight. Remember that CAPS actually is now, our mission is really to achieve or help our members achieve the speaking business that you desire. And I'm just going to keep my comments fairly brief here. This busy slide basically says some of the things that we're doing to support our members during the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic. Membership renewal. We know it's a tough time to pull the trigger on renewals, but thank you to the couple hundred of you that already did it. As you know, we've got 3 options for you. Pay in full as usual, pay $100 now and defer the balance to June 30th, pay in 6 equal installments of around $100, and of course add your taxes in there. We've also extended our renewal window to April the 30th. We know a lot of people will wait towards the end to do that, but we'd really love to have you renew. And recently, the National Board agreed to extend the payment options to new members. So if you're on the call and you're not a CAPS member, now's a great time to join our community. As you'll already be experiencing here, CAPS is the place to be for professional speakers. And where else can you get in a community that's open to sharing some of their best practices during the good times and the tough times? Renewing members, remember, you get to have your complimentary access to the CAPS Speaker Academy until the end of July. What a great opportunity to use some of your spare time to build your business and make it stronger. Jennifer Spear and Ravi Tangri have a series of 5 webinars that has been announced and underway. So hopefully you get a chance to participate in those. And then this coming week or later this week, you'll be getting an email about CAPS Communities, which is your opportunity to join with other folks around certain areas or topics of focus, elements of your business that you want to focus on. So that's kind of how CAPS is responding in terms of helping our members. I do want to just cover a few slides. For those of you who are from CAPS BC, you saw a couple of these slides from from my presentation out there. First of all, of course, we want you to take care of yourself. Say what you will about getting down to your to-do list. It's very difficult when your brain is all scrambled and fuzzy because of what's going on. So remember, though, that action alleviates anxiety. Worrying can cause problems. Maintaining routines. Stress resilience experts say that maintaining some form of routine is helpful. Calm, of course, is contagious to you, your family, your customers. They need to hear from you in a calm way. And of course, this is the support network that you want to lean on. Okay, I've got 3 things basically to cover off real quick. One, of course, is step 1 is stay in business. And of course, our panel is going to be talking about that. This is my 3rd full stop in my business. Deborah already went through kind of the economic hiccups from before, and every one of them, I've been in this now 28 years, 3 full stops where everything just stops very suddenly. It's scary every time, but it's important to stay in business. Then, of course, you'll look at innovating and add value, and of course, being a long-term optimist. Even Winston Churchill, World War II, talked about the pain that was going to happen in the short run and then the opportunities in the long run. So in the short run, it's all about managing cash flow, collect those bills from the gigs that you did in the first part of the year. I know many of you are looking at canceling things that you don't need anymore. Not your CAPS membership, by the way. Got to keep that. You're going to take advantage of the government programs that are out there. And of course, it's good to go right to the sources for that, because it's hard for us to keep up with it to let you know. So go right to your source for your federal government or your provincial government. And then, of course, maintaining customer relationships. Second is, of course, innovating and adding value. Customers still have problems. In some cases, they have bigger problems than they ever have. Also know that not every industry is being negatively impacted. There's a lot of industries that are actually doing quite well right now. Think of the toilet paper manufacturers and the folks that are making hand sanitizer, for example. Build your capability and your competence, and along with that, hopefully your confidence in remote and virtual delivery. I think your customers are going to be leaning on you to do that well. And of course, work on your to-do list, but you know what? Stop beating yourself up over the fact that you're not getting as much progress on that as you need to. Recognize that this 2 or 3 week period that we're going through is shell shock for many of us. So stop beating yourself up over the things that you haven't yet done. And you'll get to it as the weeks go on. And be a long-term optimist. Customers still need what you offer. Position yourself for that recovery. Every time I've thought that the business might never come back, it comes out stronger. And most people on this call who've been through other business disruptions, now when they look back, their business grew several times larger than what it was before the problems happened. And of course, other people need your encouragement. Take care of yourself, and then of course, encourage others. So that's it for my remarks today. I just want to say that on behalf of the CAPS National Board, again, a big thank you to Sherry Bricks and the team at Bond, who've been doing a great job offering value to our members. And please hang in there. You can make it. And do what you need to stay in this business, because as Deborah pointed out, there's going to be a significant growth path ahead. Thanks, Ron. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Greg. You know, there's a good opportunity now for me to introduce some of the other members of our panel and get to some of my prepared questions. I would love to introduce Anna Liotta right now. She's got a master's in interpersonal communication. She's a certified speaking professional, and she's the president of the National Speakers Association, the NSA, in the US. She's the founder of the Generational Institute, author of Unlocking Generational Codes, and she holds a master's degree, as I said, in interpersonal communication. That's so fascinating. She's an award-winning keynote speaker with a deep understanding from 20 years of research on how generational demographics and dynamics affect every aspect of business success. And on a personal note, Anna's COVID-19 video series for NSA inspired us to create our panel today. So Anna, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So thank you so much for joining us, Anna. Thank you for being a source of inspiration for today. What are you hearing from speakers, members of NSA? What are you hearing from meeting planners? What are you hearing from speakers bureaus in the US right now?
So one of the things that I'm hearing from all of them is this is the time in which they are so grateful for their community. So I'm really glad that you shared about the opportunity of renewal for the CAPS community, because that's one of the most important things that people are drawing on right now for the roller coaster. So really reaching out to the community to say, I want you to be there with me as I go through the trough or the lows, because you've been there with me during the highs. And so speakers right now, you know, it's really important that we are vacillating between, I got this, I can do this, and then the next day, when am I going to be out of this? So that uncertainty and that vacillation, that's when the community is really important. I've also heard from folks that, you know, there are surprising generosities happening too. I've heard from some folks that have had clients really step up and send them an early deposit, or a bureau that has sent them a deposit. So there's a lot of surprising little moments of generosity, but it's really the community and the partnership that people are consistently reinforced about those things happening right now.
I love that. Thank you. Let me introduce our next panelist, Elizabeth Nutting. She's a certified special event professional. She's the chair of ILEA, ILEA Canada, and ILEA stands for the International Live Events Association. In 2017, Liz was recognized for her creative vision and determined execution in her role as ILEA Toronto president before becoming chair of ILEA Canada. And she was awarded the J. Robert Graves Pioneer Award. So Liz, she works as the VP of Brand Strategy at Production Canada, where she leads an award-winning team of technical producers who are focused on helping corporate clients manage production, operations, and logistics. Liz, what are you hearing right now from the world of live event professionals? How are they managing right now?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This has been a great session so far, and I look forward to the upcoming conversation we have. I think really we're still in the roller coaster mode. We're still in the stages of grief. And I think people are all over the map based on when they were informed about COVID and how their company may or may not respond or what decisions they made internally. So some people are, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in, and they're now back to, as Greg said, the point where they're willing to get some of the work done. And they're starting to get back to their to-do lists. Or there's other people who have only been laid off in the last week or two who are still at the very beginning and struggling with their own day-to-day, their kids, they're working from home, all the things that challenge you when you're dealing with an epidemic quite like this. So I think the industry has not settled. I think the industry is still working on trying to sort out where we're going and what we're doing. It disappeared, as Deborah said, and Greg said. This isn't the first time it's happened, though, and it will be back.
Thank you, Liz. It's an optimistic note. And I also wanted to introduce, last but not least, Martin Perelmuter. Martin, you're the president and co-founder of Speaker Spotlight. Now, Speaker Spotlight was selected by readers of Meetings and Incentive Travel magazine as Canada's best Speakers Bureau, and Speaker Spotlight was selected by Profit Magazine as one of the 100 fastest growing companies in Canada, and Profit Magazine ranked Farah as one of Canada's top 100 women entrepreneurs for 7 consecutive years. Speaker Spotlight has arranged for well over 30,000 speaking engagements. That number might be out of date. You can provide us with updated facts in over 30 countries worldwide, and I know that your views on the speaking industry have been reported in television and print media and been published in over 60 different countries. So Martin, what are you hearing from the Speakers Bureau perspective? You've got clients in Canada, the US, international. What are you hearing right now?
Well, thanks, Ron, and thanks for having me. Deborah, that was a great session. I learned a lot from that and happy to be part of this panel. A lot of what we're hearing is uncertainty, and I think that a lot of clients are looking to us as a bureau and to speakers individually to provide some clarity. It's difficult now. I think when we look back on this a year from now, 2 years from now, and it's today's April the 5th, the 6th? It's Monday, right? We will. I think we're going to see this as really early days, and that it was too early to really know what was going to happen next. But we have some sort of scenarios planned out and how we see things. And, we're operating right now under the assumption and the hope and the belief that events will be back in the fall. May not look exactly the same as expected, as Deborah mentioned, but, we're hoping that by September, we're going to see events. Most of the events that our clients have booked in September and beyond are happening as of today. And I think if people continue the social distancing and the practices, health practices, that are prescribed by our governments, by the health professionals, that hopefully we'll see that. But right now we're just working. Each client is different. Some clients are optimistic and planning towards the fall. Others are more hesitant, which is very understandable. And then in the midst of all this craziness, we just had a client book a speaking engagement for 2024, which was just the craziest thing ever. I don't think we'd ever booked this speaker more than 2 years in advance. And someone decided that they needed to secure a date 4 years from now. So little glimmers of hope like that remind us that there is going to be life after this. There will be events. And it's just really a question right now of how soon things get back to quote unquote normal and what that next normal is going to look like.
Thanks, Martin. Liz, I have a question for you. One of the things that I'm hearing is the rise of virtual. So I understand that you're on a lot of webinars. You're invited to a lot of sessions. I know ILEA Canada has terrific resources in the ILEA hub for dealing with COVID-19, terrific resources. I'm curious, you don't like webinars. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's very much a personal opinion, and I think everybody's a little bit different. But, the slight challenge with webinars is that sometimes you're stuck watching the thumbnail only and you have the screen full of content and you can't really focus on the speaker. During the chat, we saw people ask how you got attention from people, how much was split between the three different things: the screen, what else is going on your computer, and your phone. And that's always a challenge. And I'm usually very focused if I'm watching television. The only thing I'm looking at is the television. Everything else I can kind of multitask, but that in particular is important to me. So when I watch a webinar, I want to be engaged the entire time in a way that I don't feel distracted by the other things. So yeah, I may or may not like webinars, but it is part of our industry now. It's inevitable. All of you are out there, are professional speakers. It's your livelihood, so you need to learn how to get good at it. You need to open up your portfolio and figure out what those tidbits are that you can offer people who are in a mild daily panic mode.
Thanks, Liz. Now, Anna, I know that you have some concerns about the intimacy or lack of intimacy when it comes to virtual programs, and some fears about keynoters just jumping right and doing virtual programs. Can you share some of those thoughts?
Absolutely. I think one of the mistakes that people will make is they will try to take their larger than life keynote and deliver it exactly the same in an intimate modality. And so we really have to make sure that we have transferred our IP and our delivery to the modality that we're going to be using. So it's not that you can't make that conversion with the question of what's needed now for my audience. How is my IP something that my audience needs to hear right now, but from their perspective? Because we will hear it immediately fall very tinny or very hollow if we're saying what we said before. I'm calling that BC, before Corona, and AC, after Corona. So you have to really know that there is going to be a demarcation, and how you deliver it will need to match the platform that your meeting professional is asking you to deliver it on. So it's going to be something that can be really rich if you can create the intimacy and you can give the pauses and the definitions to people in the way that they need them in that format.
Thanks, Anna. And I see Kristen Arnold is in the house, and now we're not all Brian Walter, we're not all Kristen Arnolds in terms of jazzy panels, in terms of extreme meetings, but I'm sure that there was great lessons from this brain trust on this panel. Greg, you do a lot of training, you do a lot of virtual training as well. What are your thoughts on, or concerns when it comes to virtual programs?
Well, I think, Ron, we always think of it as being one or another. Now, I'm more in the corporate training business than I am in the keynoting business. And so I actually see the recovery even being different in the corporate training business versus the keynote or conference business. But so I'll speak to what I know, which is that the customers who are in businesses that are still doing well are asking us to present them with ideas for hybrid solutions. So it could be something where everyone is on a call like Zoom or a webinar, or it could be where there's a remote instructor and a local facilitator doing the more active learning parts. The other comment I would make is, and I'm borrowing this from Bob Parker, CSP, former CAPS president, who does the Pit Crew Challenge, is he said, you would never launch a product without sort of co-inventing it with your customer first, or at least running it by your customer. So my cautionary note is, don't assume that everything you put together right now actually has a market of paid customers behind it. And why not co-invent something with your customer in a conversation? They're actually quite intrigued about co-invention as opposed to having you have it all polished and presented to them up front.
Thanks, Greg. And Martin, I understand you're concerned about people rushing into virtual programs as well and doing a bad job and leaving a bad taste in the client's mouths. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is really important, and I think Anna has a really good point that some presentations are going to translate better into virtual formats than others. And I think that, you know, for any speakers looking to move into that world, it's, you know, we've seen sort of the whole speaker world and speaker bureau world all of a sudden say, we can do virtual. And I think that it's better suited for some speakers' delivery and content than others. And I just think, like anything, you wouldn't get up on a stage in front of 1,000 people and command a big fee before you've done it once or twice, you know, in front of a smaller group, or, you know, in front of the mirror, or in front of your family and friends. And I think that that's just really important, that it's not exactly the same. It's a different medium. And I think that it's really important that, you know, speakers move more into this virtual space, that they're doing some of the same things that they would have done when they maybe first got into the speaking world, in terms of ensuring that they're going to deliver a great experience. Because if they don't, unfortunately, I think it's going to affect all of us. If, you know, if a client for the first time hires a virtual, you know, a keynote or a virtual keynote, and it really doesn't land, then I think that they're going to be much more reluctant to do it again. So I think that, I just think good business practices, good speaking practices apply. The world has changed, but a lot of things remain the same.
I'm going to throw this out to the entire panel. Thoughts on pricing for virtual programs? Do you price at the same fee? Do you price at a different fee? Does it depend whether you're a keynoter or a virtual corporate trainer? What are your thoughts? Go ahead and unmute yourselves and share your thoughts on pricing for virtual programs.
I don't mind jumping in. I don't mind jumping in because we have been booking a number of virtual keynotes and webinars and other presentations, and we'll work with a wide range of speakers. So I've got a pretty good sense of what people are charging, and it really varies. Some speakers are charging the same as for their keynotes. They say that what they sell is their intellectual property, not them physically being on a stage in front of an audience. So some are staying at their full fee. Others have, a lot I think have moved to sort of 50 to 75% of their standard sort of keynote fee for virtual, and some have dropped it even further. So it really does depend. I think it depends partially what your offering is as a speaker. If your intellectual property is unique and that's why people are hiring you, then you probably don't need to drop your fee as much. If what you do is not necessarily as unique and part of what it is the experience of you being in a room and people having a chance to interact with you, then it may be tougher to stay with the full fee. So for some sort of celebrities and people where, their physical presence sort of matters more because maybe there's a meet and greet or photo op, we may see a bigger drop. But 50 to 75% of the fee, I'd say, is about the average of what we're seeing.
And any other thoughts? Do you agree, disagree?
I agree with that. And I think that the other thing that people want to think about is if you take your live delivery to the virtual platform, it is still a live delivery, and to really create and craft a brilliant live delivery, there's going to be a lot of work that you put in. It's not going to be a boilerplate, hey, I've done this a million times. If you're doing it well, there should be research that you've done beforehand with the client. There should be interviews, there should be customization, everything you would have done and more on stage to make sure that every single minute is worth its time, because there's a compression when we're virtual, particularly right now with Zoom fatigue. There's a lot of Zoom fatigue going on right now. People have been on back to back to back to back to back. So what you might have been able to unpack and relax into over the course of an hour live, you now have to figure out how do you do that in maybe a shorter period of time with a more distracted modality. So the amount of time you put into it might actually be more work than you would have done to do it on stage because you're super comfortable with that. So yes, I agree with that same price point, but you also want to be, as a speaker, more explicit and partnering with the client about what are you going to do to make sure that that live event that's being held virtually on that platform is as worth as much to every single one of their participants as a in-person proximity event.
Thanks, Anna. Greg?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that we've been taking 2 days of live training that we normally would do on site for a company and slicing it into 90-minute to 2-hour segments. So my view of it is I can't just take the fee for the 2 days and divide by 8 to get down to the price for 2 hours. It's kind of like you go buy a bag of chips, it might be $1 for a small bag and $1.70 for the party bag or the family bag. So I view it as actually as shorter increments could be more expensive. We also figured that an instructor can probably deliver 3 of those 90-minute to 2-hour segments in a day. So we're taking that into account and using that as our threshold for converting daily rates into smaller session rates. And the last thing I'd say is that we're willing to concede that there's not a travel expense. So we're willing to give that money up for sure.
And to add, I believe that it just comes down to value. What's your creative value that you have to bring to the table? Bottom line, that's what they're going to be looking for.
Could I just throw one more thing in there, Ron, just in terms of the format? I think I'm generally not a fan of Q&A in a keynote. I think that it often doesn't work well because the speaker gets to the end of their presentation and then sort of if they say any questions, people don't know whether they're supposed to clap or not, and there's that moment. So it can work sometimes, but it has to be done well. But I think that in virtual formats, some form of interaction or Q&A is critical. You can't just deliver a canned presentation. I mean, people can just watch a TED Talk that's going to look a lot more impressive than seeing someone sitting in their home office or wherever they are. So I think the interactive part of it becomes critical. So if you're taking your standard keynote, and if you don't normally do it Q&A or interactive part and bringing it into a virtual format, you need to create the interaction. It may be in advance, questions are agreed upon, and there's a moderator. It may be taking questions from participants, but I think that that's a critical component to a really good virtual presentation.
Martin makes an excellent point there. When you do it virtually, you should not be doing it all alone. If you're going to have that kind of interaction, you should have somebody running that. You should not be like looking down. This format, it's fine when it's your peers and if you're not being paid the big dollars for it. But if you're going to be paid the big dollars, then put the crew around you to support you in delivering a seamless, smooth experience for folks. So make sure that you don't just try to do it all yourself. There will be some acceptance right now because we're transitioning quickly. Just look at the evening programming when the satirists and the comedians went from being in a studio with a live audience. Those first few things they delivered were kind of bumpy, but really quickly, the quality is going back up, the performance is coming back up, the visuals are coming back up. So we have to roll with it too. It's not going to be accepted for that long for us to be choppy and bumpy. We need to bring it up if we're going to keep the price point up.
And to Anna's point, that it looks like what it's going to actually do, the whole virtual world, is going to close the gap between speakers and their clients. There's going to have to be a lot more partnership and teamwork and rehearsals. And I think it's a really good thing that this is happening because it's just going to bring us closer to each and everybody.
All I was going to add is that the platform may not be Zoom. I know we're all kind of into Zoom right now, and it's a really great platform. It might not be the way you want to do it. There's livestream.com. There's other solutions out there. And I do agree with getting technical assistance, both possibly on the video side and on the Q&A moderation side.
Liz, I'm curious for you. You got a theater background and you do live event production, large scale. I'm curious, what lesson can we learn from theater or from these large scale event productions and bring it to the small screen?
Yeah, I think everybody is touching on it in their own way. I think one really important piece to theater is that you've got a director and you've got a crew of people around you. So we already mentioned that you really do need that support technically. You can't do this by yourself when you're doing a keynote session on stage. You can't do this by yourself when you're doing any sort of virtual or webinar version. So beyond that, also get a director. If you've never done this before, ask your agent, ask your employer even to do a test run. Ask your husband and wife or spouse to watch you the first time you do it on a screen. Don't watch in person because it's totally different. On stage, you get to move around. I did love someone mentioned in the chat box that you should get up. I really like that because I'm a hand talker, so sitting in this chair is driving me bonkers. But that's not a theater thing. That's just very much a speaker, presenter, personality preference, right? But you can't necessarily do that. You don't have a cameraman following you across the stage when you're speaking in a webinar. So you really need that director. You need that person who really understands what your clients are looking for to get your specific message across. So take the time to find that person, identify that person, and work with that person. I think a lot of people have, as Anna said, gotten comfortable with the stage, but this is a whole new thing. So you might need to go back to the basics. If you haven't done this before, take the time to learn and grow and make it an offering. Because even when we are back on stage, we're still going to need to offer webinar and virtual options. It will be hybrid sessions for months to come. There are people who are still going to be afraid to leave their houses, and companies are going to need to adapt for that.
Thanks, Liz.
And I have to add to that because I'm a theater nerd deep in the heart. Understand how things translate differently on camera. I remember my first time when I'd been doing theater and I did television production in undergrad, and I had these big expressions because you communicate to the back of the house, and on camera it looked horrifying. So you need to understand, how do you talk directly to the camera, be able to stop looking at the people. That is one of the first things that shows you're an amateur, is when you cannot look straight into the camera and keep talking and let all the other things go away and continue that relationship directly with the person you're talking to, and have your, and I'm Sicilian, so the hands are never going to stop. I mean, that would shut me up if I had to stop the hands, but make sure that you're communicating at the same tone that the camera picks up.
Now, Deborah, I want to ask you about something that you mentioned in your report regarding virtual presentations and recordings. Now, you suggested that would become mandatory, a mandatory requirement. Could you elaborate on that? Do you think that all event producers, all meeting professionals will now expect a recording, and do you think they'll hold the license?
Oh, I don't know about licensing. That's definitely something that we're going to have to talk to the hospitality lawyers about. But as far as recording, I know it's going to be asked upon a lot more than in the past. I know we try to protect our material and content, and it has been asked before. There's been some pushback on the speaking side, which is understandably. But I think there's going to be, at least from our feedback work that we've received, is that is going to be one of the pluses of having virtual, that they're going to be able to record and to share it out whichever way they want with their members. Now, if we come back and say, well, you know, there's a particular fee for that, that's what's going to be foreseen. I'm wondering if Martin has even had an opportunity to face something like that, or have heard about something like that yet.
Yeah, it's come up a few times already. So, I mean, the general approach that we're taking is that, you know, that these sessions do need to be recorded. Not everybody can attend necessarily at the same time in certain organizations. So our general policy is that that they can be recorded. They can't be posted in a public space. So basically, it's got to be in a password protected area so that, you know, employees of that company or members of that association will have an opportunity to view it. But the presentation isn't going to live on YouTube or someplace like that. And we're putting a time limit on it as well. So, you know, maybe 3 months, or maybe 6 months, whatever it is. But essentially, it'll give everybody an opportunity to see the session, but people that are within that organization. And then at some point, it's got to come down. So that's the approach that we're taking. And we haven't had much pushback on that. That seems to work.
Thanks. Are there any other questions that the panelists have of each other with respect to virtual programs or your outlook? Now's your chance to play Brady Bunch and ask each other a question. Since Deborah asked Martin a question. Go ahead, Anna.
I have a question, Martin, particularly. So a lot of speakers have an online curriculum already, and it could be a natural piece that with a bureau partner could be a bigger sale, where it's deliver the content live as a kickoff or a deepener or that kind of thing. Is that something that you think people will be looking for and more interested in as we go forward? Is how do you keep this content alive beyond this live presentation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting. We started, I think 2008 or 2009 was when we started really trying to do more sort of in this sort of virtual space. And there wasn't a big appetite we found from clients at that point. They really just wanted the speaker to come in for the most part, deliver the talk, and they were good. But, you know, over time, we've seen a little bit more interest in that. And I think now that this is becoming a much bigger part of a lot of event organizers, event professionals, you know, asks of speakers, I think it is going to become a much bigger requirement. And I've always been a big believer in it, because to me, you know, if you go in and do a keynote for an hour, you know, no matter how well you do, you know, it's hard for that learning to stick. People are unfortunately going to forget a lot. Hopefully they'll remember a few things and put it into practice. But if you can do, you know, you can't chase your audience members around for the next 6 months or 12 months after you speak to them and make sure they're doing all the things that you talked about. But, you know, a virtual or digital format is a great way to send reminders, reinforce learning. And so, you know, I think that this is going to be one of the positives that we see. And I think that it's really a positive thing for the industry, because at the end of the day, you know, if there's a general complaint about speakers, it's, oh, you know, it's like the old Chinese food metaphor. It's like, you know, you fill up on it and then 2 hours later you're hungry again, kind of thing. And, you know, I'm a big believer that the more value we provide, you know, speakers, the more behavior change you can affect through what you do, the better off we're all going to be. So I think this will be a positive thing. And I think it's going to be something that is, you know, for years we've been talking within our own office and among some of our speakers that this is going to become a requirement at some point, where it won't be a question of, oh, do you have any digital offerings? It'll just be, you know, assumed or understood that will be part of what you offer as a keynote speaker. So I think this might be the impetus to really accelerate that, because to be honest, in the 10 or 12 years, we've been looking at it, trying to do it, trying to sell these things. We found that the market generally wasn't quite ready for it. And I think now it may be.
Well, and I think that the fact that our millennials are in the leadership positions and they grew up with that modality of their education being really embedded, having a lot of it be on screen, virtual, that kind of thing, is gonna, as they are the buyers, they're gonna influence it.
Customers have never been more open to innovation than they are right now, and they will be over the next 60 days. I will say that from a training perspective, once you chunk things down into smaller increments and spread them out over time, the retention and the application goes up, and you can even, because you're remote, you can do check-ins and offer assistance that really allows them to activate far more of the message and the learning than they ever could before.
I have a question for Liz.
Go ahead.
Contracts and force majeure are going to become even more prominent and detailed. The force majeure in the planning side does not include the epidemic right now, but as it's being put in, what other things are going to be added that the speaking community should be paying attention to? Because the force majeure is one of the most misunderstood clauses out there. And how is that going to be related to the speaking community?
That's a great question. I mean, there's some general sense of how things might change. I think a lot of people feel long-term our events will be very similar. And this isn't contract-based, this is overall event production-based. But immediately there will be some changes, and specifically how that might affect speakers, I guess the one that most affects speakers will be that request for more space. People, when they start going back in big meeting groups, are going to expect some space between the person next to them. Maybe it's 6 feet, maybe it's 2 feet, but they will expect more room. So as a producer, all of a sudden my capacity equations are different. And I think as a speaker, keep that in mind. If you're still speaking to 2,000 people, that audience may be bigger than you've ever had before, because they're demanding to have a seat between them, or if it's in a fixed seat auditorium, or to spread those chairs apart. So again, in addition to adapting what you do for webinars, you will probably, for those first couple of events when we're back at it, need to adapt for the room, because the room is going to change.
So how do you see the audience engagement, whether it's face-to-face or virtually? What does that look like? What kind of vision would our clients be expecting?
I don't know that that's necessarily going to change. Every speaker engages with their audience differently. Some do small workshops, some do huge keynote presentations, right? So you guys will continue to do what you do on stage as professionals. I think the big change will be those virtual hybrid events where you need to remember that you're speaking to, I don't know, 100 people in the room and 100 people in the ether. So that is going to be a real challenge, because all of a sudden you've got a camera in front of you, but you have a stage to walk across. So you need to make that decision on how you work with the two different attendees.
Hey, I wanted to ask Martin whether you're noticing any, like there could be a mini boom coming in the fall of this year with so many conferences trying to pack into, you know, what might be an 8 or 12 week period. And I just wondered, are you seeing any signs of that yet, or is it still way too early?
Yeah, so that was our initial thought was, you know, with so much of the spring getting postponed, that the fall was going to be packed. And I still think it might be. Right now, there's a lot of hesitancy to book. And I don't blame the event planners. If I was an event planner, I don't know if I'd be moving, you know, full speed ahead with my September, October meeting if I hadn't booked everything yet. So I think there's a wait and see attitude right now. But I do believe that as we get past the worst of this, and we're basically this week, you know, looks like it may be, certainly in North America, maybe the worst in terms of the human toll and the news cycle. But I think as we get into May and June and things hopefully slowly start to return to normal, you know, we may see a lot of clients starting to look to book fall events. So we've seen some of that. We've had some clients reschedule their spring events to the fall. You know, so we've certainly seen a little bit of that, and I think we'll see more. I think the corporate events is where we're going to see that. I think, you know, with a lot of associations, it's an annual event. We've had some association clients actually postpone their spring events to the fall, but a lot of them just decided they're going to basically have to skip a year and just, you know, and basically just move to next year. But I think on the corporate side where it's not attendance driven as much, so you don't have to sort of market, you know, your conference and attract attendees. You don't have to find sponsorship. People don't have to travel necessarily, or have, you know, the option of whether they do or not, get sign off from their their company to attend an association conference. I think the corporate events, if things do settle down, we'll see hopefully a big push in terms of increase in fall events, because typically they may require less travel, especially if you have a lot of people concentrated within a certain city. You could see some hybrid events there where some of the people from other parts of the country or the world can attend remotely. And they're more sort of mandatory. It's not like people have to pay, again, get clearance from their bosses to attend. So that's what we're hoping for, is a big push on corporate events in the fall. But I think we'll have a much better picture in sort of May and June as to whether that's going to happen. Right now, it's a bit of a trickle right now. I'd say it's not, the floodgates certainly haven't opened yet.
It seems like a good time for us to mix things up. I want to bring back Stephen DeWitt to make a quick announcement, and then we'll open it up to the questions. I'm seeing over 30 questions in the Q&A box. So let's get to it. Over to you, Stephen.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ron. Hi, everybody. It's so wonderful to be with you tonight. My name is Stephen DeWitt, and I am the programming chair for the Toronto chapter of CAPS. And we bring you amazing people like these panelists and these speakers today to help you grow the speaking business that you want. So I want to share with you, for our next meeting is going to be Monday, May 11th. So write that down, type it down, write it on your hand, whatever you need to do, because you don't want to miss this. We are going to have Jeff Hazlett, and he's going to be talking about how to build your empire. And if you're ready, because as we know, as we've heard, the speaking industry is changing. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing on. And so we really invite everyone to attend this special event. It's going to be an intimate and interactive gathering where we uncover winning strategies to overcome the newest obstacles, before us. So as the world adapts to the pace of business amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, it's critical to maintain business continuity, and we must drive and thrive. And I like to say, in these unprecedented times, this is where unprecedented leaders can step forward. So Monday, May 11th is where you want to be. A couple of things that Jeff said. He's going to talk about how to pivot your canceled events into virtual presentations. So what is that step-by-step process? How to digitally build and monetize your community, and the one thing that can land you over 300 opportunities. So I'm interested in that. And the one that's really there for me, the kicker, is actionable advice to get you off the couch and thriving. So sometimes we struggle to get off the couch, so that's the meeting that you want to be at. But we just heard from some amazing panelists about how to keep it interactive, how to keep it entertaining. So Ron and I have something planned, and then we're going to go right into your question and answers. So this is a time for you to move around a little bit, stretch. Some of you have been with us for over 2 hours, and then we're going to get to your questions and answers. So I got a little music coming up, and then Ron and I are going to share some things just to keep it going here. And now we're going to welcome everyone to the CAPS Toronto radio phone-in show, where we get to talk to all you cool cats and kittens and find out what you need to know and what your questions are. We have our panelists with us today. We have Anna, Liz, Deborah, Greg, and Martin, and myself, Stephen, otherwise known as AKA Dr. Durex, and Mr. The Ron Father is here. And we're going to be bringing you all those listeners that want to connect with these amazing panelists today and answer your questions. So Ron Father, over to you to ask the first question from our participants today.
Alrighty. So let's take a look at the chat box here, and I'm waiting for Rena and Francis as well. But we've got a couple of questions here about pushback, meeting planners, hospitality expectations. Let's jump into question from Elizabeth George. For previous virtual bookings, what were the criteria used for speaker selection? I'm guessing this applies to Martin, most likely, and potentially Anna, if you've heard something as well. But over to you, Martin.
So I'm not completely sure I understand. So previous speaker bookings
for virtual events. So if you've booked virtual events in the past, or speakers have been booked for virtual events, has anything changed? Have the criteria changed now compared to the past?
I don't think so. I think that, I think the biggest thing that I guess has changed is there's some people who are booking virtual presentations who've never done that before. So So there's a lot more questions. There's a lot more education in terms of educating the buyer, the meeting professional, in terms of what the options are, how it will all work. But I think that hiring a virtual speaker, speaking engagement versus regular is very similar. You want the person to engage the audience. You want them, depending on what the objectives are, educate, inspire, entertain. Like, these things are not any different. So I think that the format is different. There's some nuances to it. It's certainly a different skill for the speaker. But I think what the planners are looking for is very similar to previously. I think the key is that it's all provided within the lens of COVID-19, and that you can't just do a canned talk, or something that worked a month ago may not work now. So it just has to be obviously updated and tailored and customized for the client. But those are things that you would do anyway, I think, right? Whether it's COVID-19 or some other event in the world that may have affected your audience's personal or professional lives.
Thanks, Barton. Stephen, what are you seeing in the Q&A box right now?
So great. Thanks, Ron, Father. So we have a question from a long-time listener, first-time caller, Sarah McVannell, and she asks about demo reels. We've been taught, and it's been beat into our head, we need an amazing speaker sizzle reel. What do we do now in the age of virtual? Do we have a virtual demo reel that we send out?
I don't want to monopolize, but I've had multiple conversations on this one. So if no one else is jumping in, I'm happy to. Right now, I think it's hard to already, unless you have some good footage of virtual presentations you've done in the past, it's hard to create that. I think that what we're going to see going forward are either two versions of your video, one for virtual, one for live presentations, or I think we're going to see a combination. I think that's going to be the next iteration, where the next video that you as a speaker produce may incorporate the fact that you do it virtual, and it may have a couple of clips, of that. So I think it's going to change how we market, and video, we always say, is probably the most important marketing tool that you have as a speaker in terms of attracting new potential clients. And I think that, virtual, I think most of us agree, is going to become something that is part of our offering, not just for the next few months, but going forward. I think it's important to incorporate that in your video.
And what would be included? Like, should I include this interactivity and just capture this on a personal level? Or what is it that we're going to, on the virtual space of us sitting and talking or standing, or what elements are you looking for? Or do you think your clients are looking for when you're booking speakers?
Oh, I think everyone should include this.
Yes.
So, yeah. I think it's, to me, a good video is always, gives the meeting professional a feel for what you're going to be like in front of their audience. So if it's, if you do big keynotes in front of thousands of people, you need to show that you can do that. If you can do smaller group sessions, that should be part of your video too. And if virtual is part of it, it just short clip showing you in that format, compelling. It's going to look different than the live stage, but just showing that, yes, this is something that you do, and you do it well. And I think, and the sunglasses and the hat are key.
I think it's important to note that your client may have never done this before. So if they can't see you virtually, they're scared. This is terrifying to clients. So I think you need to find a way to capture it. I get that it's difficult. I know, Stephen, that this is a very specific interactive moment, and we're recording it. So now all of a sudden, those of us on screen have access to it. But it will be a challenge to build that content, I think. But if you don't build that content, it's going to scare your client even more than they already are.
So Liz, your content will now have two goofy guys wearing goofy hats, but I'm seeing in the chat box, people are looking to Amazon to get some pink fur, some pink feathers. And Deborah in particular, we got a couple people who are interested in your necklace. I thought when you said it wasn't really a necklace, I thought you were going to say it was a Zoom virtual device, one of those things that pops on and off. But I do have a question, a serious question for Deborah from Hey Red. What are some C-suite leaders doing in all sectors of the hospitality industry to prepare for a return to having meetings and events again?
Good question. As we know right now, they're stressed, and they're a bit scared too because of what's been going on, and they've got another week or two of furloughs and delays. But leaders are forward thinkers. They are already doing their plan ahead teams. They're reassembling their teams already. They're thinking of what's going to be, what it's all going to look like when it's time to get back to normal. So right now they're doing a lot on trying to figure out how to close the gap within their clientele as well. But once they get their team in place, then, then it's going to be a lot easier to determine, their task force of different strategic ways of trying to communicate with the client to get them come back. They're probably going to have to do some discount rates to come back, get things rolling again, and that's okay. But they've got the mindset that they're going to be, bigger and better than ever before. They're just forward thinkers. They're going to want their teams to come back stronger than ever before. And the hard part, though, is, what does their team look like? Because a lot of these teams, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but my niece, who was a waitress at the Biltmore in Scottsdale, they closed the hotel. So she's gone down to work at Amazon. And so is Amazon going to end up keeping her when her boss would like to have her come back? We don't know what that looks like. So the whole team could be totally different. But right now they're trying to plan and being very strategic on what that plan ahead team looks like. They know there's a lot of opportunities when this comes around. So anything plays, into their hands right now of what they want to do. The stakeholders, the owners, the real estate investors are listening to those that are dealing with the employees. So it's a team effort, bottom line. But since they're forward thinkers, they're going to get through this much faster than we really think. And it just all depends on how fast they can turn over those guest rooms that have been playing as field hotels or field hospitals.
Thanks, Deborah.
Great. Ron, Father, I have another question from a listener calling in from Toronto. And they specifically asked around trends that you're seeing emerge, or maybe something that clients are looking for, or topics, given what we're experiencing right now. I've talked to some speakers and they don't want to, shift lanes and be like, no, work remotely from home and I'm an expert in this. But can you speak to anything that you're getting a sense of, or how people can adapt what they're doing now to honor coming out of this? This is, the great equalizer and shaking people up. And what are people going to need from speakers, and how can we adapt to be able to provide that for people?
I'm going to just step in and just say that from a training perspective, what we're seeing is one customer said, we can't, our production plants are running full tilt. We can't get the guys even out of there. So we need you to take some of your content and put it into 15 to 20 minute bite-sized pieces that we can offer them. So we've noticed that in the short run, they're looking for shorter increments of training. And then they said over time that will grow back into some lengthier segments.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Anybody
Ray.
else have thoughts?
We're seeing so many questions in the chat box. Anna, I see your mouth about to open. You've
Yeah, I
want to
think
add to that?
people need to be thinking about the bounce. In sports, you don't want to just look where the ball is. You want to look where the ball is going to be. And I think that a lot of what I'm hearing people ask for is, can you help me with when the ball hits and goes up, for the basketball, where is it going to be? And how can you frame not just like what they're experiencing right now, but preparing your topic for that when it comes back up? How do I need to be ready now for the bounce? And so that's what I've been seeing a lot of people asking about, is help me get ready for that, because they've got that first phase of crisis thinking, and they've got resources around that now, but what's going to happen with the bounce?
So speaking of the bounce then, I'm seeing in the chat box questions about equipment. What should people buy? Should they invest in a home studio with professional backdrops? Should speakers be the ones to do this, or should they look at companies? And if they're looking at companies to handle this, who? Not necessarily names, but what should they be looking for? Where can they Google, or what directories or associations can they look for? And in terms of other professional equipment, should people just, is it okay to use your background right now, or should you get a professional backdrop? These are all questions that people have in mind. So any thoughts? Open this up to the panel.
Well, I love the comment in the questions about privacy or private is the new public. So I think there's going to be a mix of answers depending on the audience that you're speaking to. Some people are going to really like to see the more intimate look of the background. Some will want to see the more polished, you know, whether it's the white of apple or it's the Gregory, I love your backdrop right there. That's a beautiful, you know, natural wood backdrop. So you're going to want to think about what is the client you're going for, because it's not just going to be an only. You might need to have a both and. But a couple of the things that you need to make sure that you get if you're going to do something from home is you need to make sure you have good lighting, and you need to make sure you have good sound, because those are two things people will not tolerate, is that it's too scratchy, I can't hear you, that's not a good enough microphone, or I can't see you. And so you really want to be thinking about either you might still have a backdrop that shows your nerdy books. You might still have an all white. Like if I take down those pictures and I pull down that brown, I can go all brown here so that it's just a clean thing. So if I want a green screen or anything like that, I can go both ways. But you want to have that both and, but what you can't let go is sound and lighting.
All I'll say is that although we've done a lot of green screen video, this is a real wood panel wall, but it's in my basement. So when I'm in my office upstairs, it's a bit different. The one thing is that I think a set with depth, if you're going to be doing a lot of this, you're unfortunately going to have a set that you can work with. For one thing, it allows you to wear different clothing with textures on it instead of things that are good with green screen. But again, it probably depends on how big the audience is. I think green screen is okay, but I think a genuine background is going to be better for watching longer presentations.
It's really hard to light green screen. To get green screen looking good, you've got to have a lot of lights to add the depth so that you don't have that wavery in and out. And I cannot say enough, Zoom's got that beautiful, like, hey, I'd like to change my background. That's all fun for a moment, but it is not a sustainable choice unless you have lit your room really well for that depth.
Well, to Anna and Greg's point, we're all going to end up turning out to be tech tables. We're going to have to learn every little aspect, which is good, because when we go and do our face-to-face live events, I think we're going to have a better appreciation for the AV team.
Well, but I might add to that there are AV companies building virtual studios right now. So don't forget that if you are building your sizzle reel, or if you have a bunch of snippets that you need to create all at once, you might want to reach out to your local AV company, because they are doing it in a safe manner, and they've got the ability to give you that background and that quality lighting and sound that you need for things that you'll be reusing. Probably not every day, but certainly the stuff you're reusing.
That's right. Have that spectrum. Have that I can go in and get it great. And while you're there, have somebody else taking photos of you doing it, because later on, that's something you're going to seed into your promotional materials to say, hey, here's things that I've done. Here's me in front of a green screen. Here's me in that. So do it, but capture that you did it as well.
And remember, the customers might end up inviting you to one of their locations to act as a broadcast center for that. So it may not be from your home office as well.
And I think another point that we need to pay attention to, and maybe there'll be some body image consultants out there to help us with the colors that we wear, what the makeup looks like, especially for Stephen, and what does our hair look like? What goes with what? And I think that's going to be important too, because from the stage, our face and our body is far away, but on virtual, we're pretty up close. So I think, body image consulting and getting some feedback from them could be very helpful.
Yeah, that's really true. Liz, as my fellow theater person, the first thing to always understand is what translates on camera is very different than what translates on stage. So you can't have a lot of patterns. You can't have a lot of white that blooms on camera and makes you look wavery and weird if you've got too many lines going on. And yes, even the gentlemen need to make sure that you know how to put on a foundation and then do some contouring so that you live on camera as multidimensional, so that it's not beauty makeup, it's camera makeup, and it's very different. So yeah, start watching those YouTube videos, because it will help to understand how to initially get a smooth face and then start contouring so the camera can see you as a live person.
I guess the good news, Ron, is it doesn't have to cost a fortune to get the basics. in fact, there's studio kits that you can get if you haven't already looked into them. So again, I caution people not to go out and spend $5,000-$7,000 on this, but certainly $1,000 to $2,000 would get you set up with a very slick looking setup.
So I'm just being mindful of time because we were hoping to, well, when we sort of promised people that we were going to look at finishing around 8:30, but we still have a ton of questions. So I want to be sort of mindful of balancing both. Would you be okay with continuing with a few more questions? Yes or no, beloved panelists?
Absolutely.
I do need to check out because I'm a few minutes late to my next video conference call. I have loved being with you all. Thank you for the invitation to join you.
Anna, thank you so much. We'll send you the recording so you can see it and watch it again. Use it for your sizzle reel. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Anna.
And Ron, I'm off to the airport for 3 gigs in 3 different cities, so no, it's not gonna.
Try not to cough on anyone on the way there.
I'm good. I'm just doubling my fee. So 2 times 0 is.
Carry the 0. What does that mean? What's the math? Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you, Martin.
Well,
Okay.
I did want to say, though, that I didn't get mentioned earlier, is that when you do virtual, and maybe Liz can help me with this number, you're going to probably expect about a 40% drop off. So that's why it's so important to have a very crisp and clean agenda and a very tight schedule and to the point with the content. It's all about keeping their attention because there's going to be so many distractions that people can sneak in and out of. So usually right now the number is about a 40% drop off.
Yeah, and I don't know that number, but Greg mentioned it earlier saying that we need to make things shorter, you know, and that's what I was going to talk about a little bit when I was talking about the theater side of things. The director will help you with that. They'll look through your content and help you cull it to make it valuable in the short amount of time that you have with your attendees.
Yeah. One of the questions that I just had a listener call in about was specifically for Deborah. When we're looking about the hospitality industry kickstarting again, do you foresee them increasing their costs to try and recoup the loss that they had, or dropping their costs to make it more attractive for business?
Oh, good question. The information that we have right now, it looks like they're going to be dropping in order to get the interest back. That's what happened in 2008 for when we had the financial crisis, and it seemed to work. You can see that right now, like for example, in gas prices. You know, they've dropped the gas prices because nobody's driving cars, but everybody's at home. But once everybody gets back out, you know, those prices are going to go up. So I believe the hospitality industry pretty much follows that same suit, and it's worked in the past.
If I can just jump in on speaker fees. So in the financial downturn, 2008, 2009, I was just receiving like hundreds of emails from speakers who were dropping their fees by 25%, 50%. I have not seen any of those. And it's a different situation because there's no events right now. So there's no need, you know, you can drop your fee to 0, you know, there's still no events to speak at. So I'm hoping that from the speaker fee point of view, that speakers aren't going to start dropping their fee to get fall and winter and, you know, 2021 gigs, because I do think that the market will come back. And I think that, you know, that to me is sort of a race to the bottom. It doesn't necessarily help anyone. So we'll see what happens, what the reality of the market is. But right now, we're not seeing speakers dropping their fees for events. In fact, I just brought an offer to a speaker for an event in late January, early February, and the client was offering less than their usual fee. And we took them the offer and they said, hey, if this was for July or August, I'd do it. But I'm expecting to be busy in January, February, and I'm not going to reduce my fee. So it'll be interesting to see if that holds, but that's what we're seeing right now.
And I have to agree with you, Martin, because I think the demand is going to be there. And when there's demand, the fee can hold, especially with the rescheduling. I've had a program in North Carolina in May at the convention center, and now they've rescheduled me for next May. And so the contract stays the same. So I have to agree with you, hoping that speakers will hold that, because there's going to be a huge demand.
You know, I've got another question for Deborah. This is unrelated, hot off the presses, but, you know, people are really asking about your necklace. They want to know what the brand is. They want to know where to get it. our question and answer box is flooded. Tell us about the necklace.
Yay! Well, I'm glad to hear that because I'm not selling this necklace. I'm just a big fan of it. It's called InstaWear. But here's the thing. Since I've been having floods of comments regarding it in my previous meeting planner type of decision maker conferences, they've actually set up a discount code. All you have to do is actually email me at deborah@deborahgardner.com. I know you're going to probably want some of the slides. Also mention that you'd like some information about the necklace, and I will make sure that InstaWear actually contacts you directly to give you the discount. It is an incredible, incredible value. My clients are just wowed by it. They're like, Deborah, you're the one that's up on stage. You can see the entire spectrum of the room. And if you see something, all I have to do is click the back of it and it's all taken care of. I really am happy about this because one time I went to go see a speaker friend of mine at a program, and right in the middle of her talk, the fire alarm went off. Well, she froze. She didn't know what to do. So everybody stood there, and the meeting planner had to come from the back of the room to the lectern to make the announcement that everybody needed to leave. And if there was a fire, most people would have been probably dead by then. So I thought, wow, once I discovered this, I really am very grateful because I don't just wear it on stage. I wear it when I travel as a female walking down the hallway of a hotel by myself. It just gives me the security and the confidence that I would be taken care of just, with the local emergency response teams.
And can I just add, as the person who writes those emergency response plans, this is brilliant. If you have the ability to get the necklace, or if you've got crisis communication background, make sure you're telling your clients that. Because also with my stage management background, that is our job, is to tell the guests what to do in the case of an emergency. You are on stage, you're the first point of contact for all emergencies. It happens every single time. So please take ownership of that and work with your client to have that conversation about what you can do if an emergency happens.
And gentlemen, you don't have to have a necklace to wear. They have keychains. They've got other types of products that are coming out. Again, I don't want to sound like an info commercial, but I'm a big fan of this. And if you see their website, they've got a video of a woman that actually, her car went into a ditch of water and it was filling up. And because she had the necklace on, she was able to get a response team there. So not only are you saving your audience and your customer's life, you're saving your life too in this manner. And with safety and security being the #1 global concern over anything else, over terrorist attacks or AV or anything like that, you really want to take this seriously.
Wonderful, thank you. So I have another question that's come in, my producer, which is talking in my ear, from one of my favorite CAPS members from Toronto, Lauren Pibworth, who creates phenomenal websites. And she, appreciated talking about the demo reel, but how do we adjust our websites, as often that's the first place where potential clients will go to interface, get to know us. How do we adjust to talk about our virtual offerings? And is there any specific language that we can use? Because it's almost like we're I'm going to say for the majority of us, so excited about being live and being in front of people and creating that energy and that beautiful connection with the audience. And then it's like, end virtual. But now that things are moving virtual, how do we share that on our website that is enticing, and maybe some, I don't know if there's some cool, sexy language, or even if you've thought about it thus far? And silence.
I'll jump back. I mean, I just think that it's, just making it prominent on your homepage, just having, a tab or an area specifically for virtual presentations. I think just, that's important real estate on your website. So I would make it very visible. And then I would get into the specifics of the offering and the different formats it can be in, the length, topics, just get into the specifics. And if you just cut and paste your regular keynote content over there, they're going to see it, right? They're going to look at both and go, there's nothing new here. So you got to get specific, I think, in terms of learning outcomes, in terms of, just how it's a unique program. Even maybe we've had a few speakers who their virtual presentation topics are actually a little bit different, in some cases quite a bit different than their regular keynote topics, just to reflect the fact that, you know, we're living in a global pandemic, and the content, you know, that speakers deliver needs to reflect that.
The key is to remember that it's not all going to go virtual. So a segment of the market will go more virtual, and then there's still going to be the live component. So, but you do want to show the capability on your website. I think it's fairly new, unless you were already doing it, to be up with it already, but that's something on our to-do list.
Do you find folks have any examples, or does anyone come to mind in terms of who's really doing well right now in terms of online or video or virtual? Anyone, any potential people come to mind? Anyone we can take a look at?
Boy, we're so new at it. We're on that learning curve. Everybody's got to, you know, to be patient for what is going to be the new norm, the transition. So that's a good question. I don't know anyone at the moment, but we're definitely going to see a lot of people jumping in and making that happen.
Without naming names, of course, anybody that's had experience even in doing webinars and making them more interactive, or in the e-learning space, or they've, you know, exploited Facebook and those kinds of platforms for their business, probably have a bit of a head start.
One of the things that comes up, and it's something that Ron and I have had, excuse me, the Ron father, I apologize, have had a lot of experience in setting this up, is we have a lot of mastery in dealing with glitches or things, or, you know, people in the audience that have concerns, and be able to create and hold that audience regardless of what shows up. Any tips about technical glitches, or, you know, speakers challenging with their mics, or how to handle some of that stuff? And I'm just asking for, you know, the audience at large. We have over 100 people still with us, but also for the Ron father and myself, when we're going to be hosting future meetings, how to handle some of those technical challenges and glitches with grace.
Well, I know for live events, I probably wouldn't be any different for me on virtual, but when I see glitches happening, I just go into telling jokes mode. And my jokes are with my hands, so I know I'm going to be able to utilize that for virtual until it's fixed. And that's why I mentioned earlier that it's important that companies and organizations take the lead. Liz mentioned earlier who's the director. You want them to direct, because you want them to not be responsible if anything happened, but you want them to have a handle if they're dealing with, if they have their AV team with them. From home or from our offices, it's going to be hard unless we have a staff around us. But that's how I deal with it until the experts take over. So that's why I'm glad to see that companies and organizations want to take the lead when it comes to virtual equipment.
As with everything, you always get better at it the more you do it. And so unfortunately, I mean, everyone wants their first video to look awesome, and it's tough to make your first video look awesome. So I would just say, give yourself a bit of a break, knowing that the customer base is also going to recognize, at least in the early stages, that there will be glitches. But I do really think this idea, and it was in the chat as well earlier, you do need somebody else doing the moderation. I think trying to do it yourself is not good. And the same would go if you're really going to be serious on the visual, to have somebody, you're saying it's a director, at least a videographer or somebody else who's there to help you out.
Question about millennials jumping into the virtual space. Do you see potential challenges or opportunities when younger people, such as our newest CAPS member, Sam Dema, who's only 20 years old, jump into the space? They're already really keen, they're already familiar with technology, and could they be potential disruptors? They've grown up with this technology. What are your thoughts on the incumbents versus the challengers?
I'd say, by the way, Sam asked me, is he the youngest CAPS member? I think so, but I'm not sure. But, you know, why wouldn't there be opportunities if you're more technically savvy? I think the challenge for younger presenters is to be taken seriously. For older presenters, it's to appear more nimble. So it's one of those things that it's probably, there's advantages for sure, of being younger and newer. This is going to be a tremendous opportunity to stake out a new claim within the speaking and training business. And the folks who have to transition are going to struggle with that. But if you're already starting from that, that's like starting your business in a recession. You're going to be way stronger than somebody who has to live through the psychological decline and come out the other end.
Okay. Wonderful. One more question that I have, we talked about, I think Deborah, what you were talking about is utilize this time, and Greg, utilize this time to grow and to learn and to expand. Do you have some ideas or recommendations of what speakers can be doing in this downtime? I know, virtual programs, books, things along those lines that we can use this time to learn, build our strengths, and to come out bigger, better, stronger, more successful.
I just say, try not to think you're going to solve it all. Put some thoughts down on paper. The good news is PDFs are free, except for the time it takes to get them set up. Send them out to customers, test ideas, find out who wants to buy what, sell them that, and keep doing it until you figure out how you're going to make money at it. I wish I could tell you that you could just sit in your home office and figure it all out strategically. Take some of your ideas, test them on customers, see which ones attract them. And also recognize that they may not buy anything in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but still have some conversations.
Yes, I have to agree with that. And to really take care of yourself. As Greg said earlier, it's really important because this has been devastating for everyone. And if you have a family that you need to care for, maybe you have to be the strong one to be positive and practice our acts of kindness, especially on social media. People are hurting, and this is a lot of people. This is the first time they've been through this. So being patient, making sure that you spread the kindness, and to really take care of yourself, because the clients are counting on you, and they're counting on you coming back strong. And to take care of yourself is you're just going to be able to do a lot more for them in a time that they're going through their adjustments as well.
Deborah, got a question for you about hotels. 2 questions. One is, are hotels letting meeting professionals out of their contracts with all the cancellations? And 2, Jessica mentioned that you mentioned that boutiques and independent hotels could be the big winners coming out of this. Could you elaborate on that? And do you see any other trends of winners or losers coming out of the recovery? I mean, we could assume that the cruise industry is sunk, but from who else in the hospitality industry could we look for?
Yeah, those are good questions. And I know Liz can probably chime in on this as well. For the hotel hospitality industry, again, where all our clients go to first, the boutique and independent hotels that I'm talking about are the ones that mostly don't have the space. They're the ones that are going to probably fill up based on the leisure and the BT business. Right now, they're accommodating healthcare providers and truck drivers, but that's all going to switch over once this all calms down. So once we see the boutique and the independent hotels become full, then the big brand hotels are going to start filling up. Airbnb, I see, is trying to be as flexible as they can right now, and playing into this and hoping to help as many of their suppliers as much as possible. But when it comes to contracts, that was the first question?
Yes, for meeting professionals, are hotels releasing meeting professionals from their contracts?
Well, at first, it was very difficult because there was no understanding of COVID-19. But now they're not letting them out of their contracts. As a matter of fact, clients don't want to be left out of their contract, because if they are, there's attrition, there's cancellation fees that can add up more than what the meeting actually costs. So they're partnering, they're working together, they're having the conversations, the difficult conversations and long conversations, trying to reschedule them. And the hotels, I mean, they're closed. So the only people that can really handle this right now are the skeleton crew that is there. So it's taking longer than expected, and it is a rippling effect. Like I mentioned before, 1,200 of the hospitality people that I know of are going to be laid off this week. So it's a tripling effect. Even though we might be up and running next week, doesn't mean our industry is going to be up and running. And Martin was right, as he mentioned earlier, it's still going to be a couple months until we see this come around. So there's a lot of partnership going on right now and understanding of what's going on. So it's all good. The relationship is more important than anything when it comes to something like this.
So I'm seeing a message from Liz saying that her computer's about to die. So this seems like a good time for us to wrap up. Any closing thoughts? Liz, before you disappear from us into this void, any closing thoughts for our panelists, for our members, for our guests?
I was going to add, I think in terms of events, the next thing that's coming, we'll see first probably is sports. It's something that's required for people, for entertainment, and sports leagues can't survive without full houses. So keep an eye out for that. Already the golf is rescheduled sometimes. But overall, I just say, as I said one at the very beginning, that we will get through this. Things will change. I'm really proud of all of you for sitting through this session. And this session, Ron and Stephen, thank you for hosting this session. It's certainly one of my favorite webinars I've been on, or I've witnessed. I've even been on watched. So I think combining the tools that you did a really great job keeping it engaging throughout. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. And we'll send you the recording as well, so you can add this to your demo reel too.
And anyone else listening out there and watching this, know that there was a lot of work put into this. Ron and Stephen, you did a fabulous job with all the rehearsals. The agenda was very tight and clear and crisp. So know that this is going to be new for all of us. Ask for help. We're all in this together. And so even with the virtual side or even live events, always ask. Everybody's here all together anyway.
I just want to encourage people, hang in there. I know it feels brutal right now, but it does for everybody. And just get through this next little while. Start to see the slight uptick of optimism that will be a few weeks out. And then be there to ride the wave, because your businesses will be stronger and better because of what you've learned right now.
Yeah, I agree. Echo everything that you guys said, and I think that the decisions that we make now, the behaviors that we show now, people are going to remember. So be kind, be compassionate, be empathetic. There's a lot of people, especially in the events industry, who are hurting, and the more that we can be there. Just showing up, not to sell them anything, just to let them know that we're here. When things get better, they're going to remember that phone call that you made, or that kind email that you sent, or post on on their social media. So I want to look back on this time, a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, and feel proud about everything that I individually have done and as a company that we do. And I just think that if we all do that, I think. Anyone who's still on the call, I think there's still a lot of people on it, and the panelists, we're obviously committed to this industry, and we want to be in it for the long term. And I think that, that the actions that we take now are going to impact, how we do, months and years down the road.
Well said. Thank you. So we still have about 80 people on the call. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, there's tremendous interest in what is going on right now, and also what's going to happen, because we may very well be in it in the long haul. So I'm seeing in the chat box discussion about this, discussion about the fall, maybe being optimistic. I think that's something that we sort of touched on, that we just don't know. Where the summer, the fall may be optimistic, but we may be in this in the long haul. So what does that really mean for us, and what can we do right now? How can we take this day by day? But then what's our long-term technique, and what are our long-term strategies? If you go and watch the recordings, everyone, you will find tremendous wisdom and tremendous insights. A lot of your questions have been answered in the discussion. I'm really proud of our panelists. I'm really proud of our board, our organizers, Dr. Durex. It's been so much fun, and I really am so grateful and really appreciative of all your energy, your inspiration, your generosity, because this is not an easy time, and I will remember all of you for your contributions today. So thank you very much, and those of you who are still with us as participants, stick around and we'll do a little dance, and we'll promote all the attendees to participants. We can all see each other and do the Brady Bunch. But thank you again to our our panelists. Big love, much love to all of you so much. And wow, you know, we're in this together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron,
Thank
Stephen.
you.
Thanks, guys.
So I'm just I'm just promoting everybody to panelists so everyone can talk, and we can have a bit of a networking opportunity for those of us who are still around to talk more. You may have to unmute yourself and put your videos on, and you can talk about some cool things or ask some more questions. Promote to panelist.
I want to try this out and see if this is going to work. I'm going to share this, share my screen and bring up a slide.
Hi.
Hey, Ron, I thought at some point the webinar is like limited to, I don't know whether it's 20 or 40 panelists. So I wasn't sure whether you actually can make everybody a panelist.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, it's going to be the people that I get to first, so I apologize.
Let's find out. First come, first serve.
Oh, should I let Heather Moyes? I don't know. Maybe I should promote her to panelist. She didn't return my text. We'll see about that.
Okay, I'll jump in here and see who I can promote to panels as well.
Oh my.
I'm promoting Lauren Pibworth.
Can we stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, let me stop sharing the screen. Did you hear music?
Thanks.
Yeah,
Hi, you
we can
beautiful
see
people.
y'all, so we can see everyone.
I noticed, Allison Graham, that you have your title now as virtual presenter or virtual keynoter. So.
I did, because you know what? That's all people want.
So guys, what were some of your key takeaways? Go ahead, you can talk now. Maybe we can unmute you. Or you can type it in the chat box if you like. What were some of the key takeaways from today's session? I'm completely overwhelmed. I apologize. Steve and I are completely overwhelmed by the questions. We had 2 moderators and we're still overwhelmed. There's obviously tremendous appetite for insights and for sort of thoughts and perspectives. So that's why I really am so grateful for our panelists today. We really are in this together, and we'll get through this together.
It's Claire. I suppose I was really impressed by the sense of optimism that things are going to come back, and that's what I needed to hear. So that was wonderful.
So, you know, I love the optimism, because those of you who know me, I'm an optimist, silver lining girl all the way through. I think the reality is it's not that soon. Like, even if tomorrow they had a vaccine and we were ready to go out into the marketplace, we're not 2 months away from getting people comfortable with being in close proximity again. Like, one of the bureaus that I was talking with, Martin, you're my favorite. You've just never picked me up, but now it doesn't matter because there's no speaking. That's okay. You wait.
That is not the takeaway from today's session, Allison.
No. But I do think it's an important conversation, because even if like living through the SARS and N1 or H1N1 and all that, right? It was 18 months, right? Is what he's predicting. And like, I think we have to be looking at our business models and saying, you know what? It's not about how are we going to bounce back. Let's stop using that word. We're never going back. It's not about what are we going to do in the summer. It's about how are we going to sustain ourselves for the next year to 2 years before we're back to it.
Yeah.
And so optimistic, but also realistic.
No, I agree that you have to actually get it to the point where you can increase your own confidence that you can hang in there. The other thing is, as you pointed out, in other recessions, which we're going to be entering into, depending on what's part of the corporate business that you're in, budgets get impacted not only for the balance of this year, but to some degree into the next year. And really, you know, for our type of business, probably come back even the year after that. So I always think that your first priority is, of course, cut expenses. Secondly, is you look at any cash flow that you can generate, which is positive to sustain us. I said to Ron and Stephen in our prep call, I said, what saved us the last time is we had one nice contract, and we fed off of that for as long as we could until the rest of the market came back. So someone in your client base hopefully will have some budget and some money to spend, and you'll use that to sustain yourself until the rest of the customer base comes up, depending on what market you are selling to.
Can I just raise that somebody's mic is making a scratchy noise? and I don't know whose it is, but
It's Greg. No.
Is it? It might be something against the fabric, but it's something because we're talking about sound and light. It's just thought I'd let you know.
That's the challenge with having all these panelists, which is the reason why we deliberately chose to use Zoom webinar. So we can put all you guys on mute, put it on lockdown, no other audio distractions.
From Allison, to Allison's point about returning of business, part of the North Star Group survey that I presented today of those 532 people plus on the economic side, which is what they follow, they said 59% of them said that they'll still feel that impact in the next 12 months. And then 24% of them said that they'll still feel that impact in the next 59% impact in the next 12 months, 24% of the impact in the next 24 months. So Allison, you're right. It's going to be a lot longer than expected.
Can I just jump in too? So I think it's going to be at least a 2-year recovery. So a lot of the events that have been postponed or canceled and rescheduled for 2021, like we're going to lose a whole sales cycle, right? So there's clients that we book their speakers every year, and now their 2021 conference is done because they just moved all their speakers from 2020 to 2021. So it's not going to bounce back in 2021. I think best case scenario is it bounces back in 2022. Having said that, I think that fall may be optimistic, but I think, we're talking 5 months from now. And I think that to me, and maybe it's just because I'm a sports fan, but if we see the return of Major League Baseball at some point in the summer, which is expected, if 50,000 people are going to a stadium to watch a baseball game or a football game, I think that we're going to see 500 people or 1,000 people ever go to a conference. So I think that to me is the indicator. Like as soon as the NBA canceled their season or at least suspended their season, I realized like we're screwed. Like there's not going to be any conferences. As long as that was sort of the argument that how can you cancel a conference for 500 people in the convention center when next door there's 20,000 people in Toronto and at the Scotiabank Center, whatever it's called now. So I think that if we see a return of live music and theater and sporting events, that'll be a good indicator that conferences will go on. But if those things don't come back, then we're not going to see conferences.
And this is all based on if the virus doesn't come back again for another wave.
Well, that exactly.
Can I interject? I think for this occasion, what's happening, we could learn lessons from what happened in the Great Depression and the cycle it went through, what was successful there, what was failing. And because the thing that really concerns me is the impact it's going to have on the lower levels of our society in terms of income. The laborers, the people who servers and things like that, they are going to be suffering very, very badly. And that's going to affect, that's going to be a ripple effect throughout our society. It doesn't mean that it's going to be as bad or as long, but what people did to be able to survive during that condition, all right, is going to be similar to what people are going to have to survive now with the COVID-19. Hopefully it'll be a lot shorter and we're going to be wiser, but looking south right at the moment, wisdom doesn't seem to be coming to the fore. And so I'm just not sure. I just think that there are lessons to be learned from history. And the closest I can think of is not our recession, but the Depression.
Thanks, Reg. I just want to jump in here and sort of point out that we did sort of hint at in our discussion how things could be really bad. And what we're discussing is a best case optimistic scenario, but we do want to sort of inspire people to look beyond what's going on right now and to potentially plan while making sure, as Greg alluded to, that you've got your short-term financials taken care of. Look at your 30-day, potentially 60-day, 90-day, sort of a financial triage. And the NSA has great resources as well on that. And I can add that in the chat box. Some terrific webinars that inspired me personally, and some fabulous NSA speakers were sharing what they've learned from past downturns and their strategies for finding immediate cash flow. And on one of the one of the NSA webinars, the national webinars, one of the speakers said that he expects that 40% of the full-time speakers in the NSA could be wiped out as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is not a light, we're not taking this lightly at all. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic and the shift from previous NSA webinars from just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, saying, you know, there hasn't been a lockdown, people can still travel within the states. And then now suddenly, no, we're all gonna, you know, this is it, like we're gonna give up or something. So I'm seeing Sarah raising her hand. Questions, comments, funny remarks?
Oh, now I have to come up with something funny. I missed speaking in like a month. I actually wanted to ask Martin and Deborah, what's your thoughts on so much free offers? I totally understand the idea of we need to serve, we need to support. At the same time, are we overwhelming folks? Are we not creating a sense of hunger or desire for really valuable content that at one time people were paying for and we were marketing? So Gregory, which I see your full name, so clearly you got in trouble at some point, Gregory. Just out of curiosity, maybe other people have opinions about that too. Does it dilute our value as professionals when we're just giving? Or is it serving?
If no one will buy, then free is the price of it, right? So if no one will want to spend money, you're going to do it for free. And there's things you can do for free. We've actually done a program for free. And then we have a program that we are charging customers, but not many are buying right now. So it's one of those things. That's why I think if we rush out right now to try to do a bunch of stuff and we're overwhelming people with the free, it could be a problem, right? It's all part of a business strategy if it's going to work for your customers. The one thing I was going to mention though, is this is not a time to say you're in every lane. So, you know, some people are going and saying, well, now I'm suddenly an expert in this and this and this and this and this. And like, unfortunately, the market isn't going to treat kindly the people who say that they're experts in everything. So.
I agree with Gregory.
Lauren, question.
I just want to say that I know that it's really tough out there, but I also want to remind you that you guys are probably among the most creative individuals that I have ever had the opportunity to know. So yes, what we've always done may not work, but I absolutely know in my heart that you guys are kind of going to come up with a whole new way of selling, because the way you sold and the way I marketed before is probably never going to work again, at least not exactly the same, but you're going to come up with something. Yes, what you're doing right now isn't working, but I know, damn it, that you guys are going to, there's going to be some things, and maybe for the next year, you're not a speaker.
Right, Lauren, you know, I have to agree with you. What's your side hustle? What's your new side hustle?
Exactly.
You know, a girlfriend of mine, Linda Larson, with the Central Florida NSA chapter, she started learning how to cut hair. So she's cutting her husband's hair now. And what she's going to do is she's going to develop that into a story that she can utilize in her keynotes, because she's a face-to-face keynoter. She'll probably never go virtual, but she is picking a side hustle to develop into. So tell your story. What is that new story that you're going to go through? You've been hearing all kinds of other people's stories through this whole last 2 to 3 weeks. What is your story in the best way? So I totally agree with you. If you're creative enough, create that side hustle. Maybe it's a new language. Maybe it's learning how to cook. And before you know it, you're going to be talking to an audience of chefs. So I agree with you, Lauren.
Thank you. I just, it's not a question. I just had to say that because I just know. I'm sorry. I love you all. Never mind. Bye.
We love you,
Too, Lauren.
For the record.
So I'm seeing a hand raised from Brig from the Professional Speakers Association of India. Go ahead, Brig. You can press the space bar to unmute yourself temporarily. Go ahead and press the space bar, Brig.
Yeah, friends, I'm from India, and I wanted to also, when you're talking about the pricing point, I also want to share this idea that while the market will change, the people who are going to pay you, who are paying you a certain amount of fee right now, will also have reduced capacity of paying. And in the corporate world that I know, at least in India, that whenever there has been a financial crisis, the first people to be hit are the training and speaking industry, because people stop hiring people at that time. So therefore, the pricing point will also have to keep in mind the paying capacity of your customers. And we have followed a strategy for the last 2 weeks. I've done 8 free webinars, and that is the time to build trust with your clients and say that I'm here to help you when you are in trouble, so that when the upswing comes, you have got their trust and they'll come back to you. And I'm already getting some paid webinars right now because I did 8 free webinars.
That's good news. That's great news, Brig. That's great news for us as well. So future possibilities through what we're doing right now and learning and growing together. Some of these free webinars could lead to paid webinars.
And
Sejal,
also there's never been an opportunity like this before to go global, because earlier there were flights involved and things like that. Now to be able to get a gig on a webinar across the globe is easier than ever before.
So Sejal, do you have a related question?
Actually, it connects with a lot of what Lauren was saying, Brig was saying, and the person beforehand as well. Reg, I agree that this is something, history has something to show us. And I've been talking about it from the sense of like the Industrial Revolution. We are into the next revolution. This has caused us to accelerate the pace of change in the way we educate, the way we speak, the way we run small businesses, the way we interact with our families. So we're coming into a real period of accelerated change, and that is where the discomfort's coming from. But without discomfort, there's no growth. So just wanted to encourage all of you that this is really, although it may seem bleak right now, it's very exciting because so many things have been mobilized in different ways that would never have come had this not happened. So this is real opportunity. So keep it from that perspective if you can. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of a downturn, but remember, we have the millennials at our heels, and they have proven to be extremely resourceful. They like their gratification, immediate gratification. There's certain aspects that have not worked in their favor up till now, but I think this is where their strengths are really going to come through. They're not going to take this lying down. We are not going to see the economic downturn or the long recovery that we've always had to. We are going to recover much faster because we have advanced in technology. We've advanced in our globalization. We've advanced in many ways. So it's just a matter of about weathering this storm. This is not the apocalypse. So there's a big, big difference. Just to be mindful of that. What I have been doing that I would like to share with you is leveraging the connections and building those relationships that we've been talking about. So for instance, kind of reaching out and made so many new connections, like I'll be speaking at Harvard in the next 2 weeks, which never would have happened had this not happened. So, just things like that. I just want to point out that there's lots of opportunities. It's just about reconfiguring right now and adapting.
I have a question from Martin, if I may.
Yeah.
The question I have is, I live in India, of course, and I don't know whether you do a lot of speaker bookings internationally. So if you do, where do you see the South Asian and East Asian market going? They're reeling as much as the rest of us are reeling under this blow. So where do you see that going, if you have an answer for that?
Yeah, we do some work there, but I'm not enough for me to feel qualified to answer that. But I think that the one thing we've seen is that, this is not a regional issue, obviously. This is a global issue, and it's affecting every part of the world, maybe other than Antarctica, but I don't know too many speakers who have done keynotes in Antarctica before. So, I think how each country and each region comes out of this is going to depend on a number of factors. Just within North America, we're seeing 2 very different political or governmental responses. And it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the economic recovery in Canada and the US. You look in Scandinavia, and Sweden is taking a very different approach than all of their Scandinavian neighbors, and in fact, most of the rest of the world. And it'll be very interesting to see, how that impacts it. So I think part of it does depend on, the uniqueness of each region and each country. But to just sort of build on what Sejal was saying, because I love what you said, and this speaks to what Reg was saying too. I mean, I think we are in for a really dark and difficult time. And I think that one of the things most on my mind, like most of us on this call, I'm assuming, are going to be okay. We're not going to end up living in a cardboard box, somewhere. So we'll be okay. It's a blow to our bank account. It may be a blow to some of our egos, but we'll be all right. But I'm concerned about the people who literally don't know how they're going to pay their rent and buy their groceries. So, but having said that, even if we have 20% unemployment, let's say, which would be, I believe that would be in line with depression level unemployment, of the 1930s. That would still mean that 80% of the workforce is employed. And that means that there's people working and people are going through a difficult time that are working. And so I believe that people on this call and the people in this industry, that's our job, right? Is to help the people, if we deal with corporate clients or associations, for example, who are working, and help them, give them tools and inspiration to help them get better at their work, and hopefully also get better, in their personal lives and in their community lives as well. So that isn't going away, right? So there's still going to be a lot of people working, and organizations and individuals are going to need tools and inspiration to get through this. And so really all that has changed is how you deliver that. And it may have been before on a stage in front of a bunch of people, and now it's going to be different. But, that is going to continue. And I think a lot of organizations, and this is what we saw 11, 12 years ago, is a lot of clients who, normally would have their big annual conference, maybe in Banff, or maybe they go to the Caribbean or somewhere nice like that. Maybe they're like, okay, we can't go to those places, so we're going to have it, locally, maybe not the nicest hotel. And instead of spending this much money on speakers, maybe we're going to cut our budgets. So I think what we may see now is a lot of organizations that are continuing the work, and in some cases, most cases their business is going to be down, but hopefully, they still, many companies, they're not going to be hurt as much as others, certainly not as much as the events industry. So instead of spending $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 on a big conference or an offsite, right? They may say, okay, we don't have $100,000 for a company offsite, but maybe we could spend $20,000 and do a virtual conference and bring in a couple of great speakers and really educate and inspire. So I think that's what we may see in the shorter term. When I say short term, I mean 6 to 12 months, maybe beyond, is some of the, the events that would normally take place, where a lot of money would be spent on venue, on food and beverages and transportation and other things. Budgets will be cut, but I think where that money will be spent is on education and inspiration, which is all of our jobs. So I think that may be something that we see, and certainly we're seeing a little bit with our clients already. And again, we're really early days in this. So to me, it's really promising that we have clients who are already doing this, some of whom have never done it before. But those that aren't, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, like, you can't have a workforce working, in the conditions that we're all working in now, and not do something to support them and their skills and their, their levels of engagement. So that's how I see it playing out. But it's not, it may not be on a stage, but presumably we all have messages that people need to hear, and it's just, again, to Sejal's point, having the creativity and the wherewithal to figure out how to get your message to people if it's not going to be on a stage.
And Martin, just in addition to your employment, only half the population is in the workforce to begin with. So remember, half of people are either children or retired, or they're just not in the workforce. So you're making a good point. It is going to affect a lot of people, but it's not the majority.
Right. Well, and there's another opportunity to look at people aren't buying now, but I think they will come back to buying fairly shortly. And if you have something that actually does position to the need, one of the speaking groups I was in today, somebody has a book they're ready to put out on anxiety, but it's like nobody would launch anything now, but maybe you have exactly what somebody needs. So I've been trying to be creative with a free offering to say, here's some things. If I've done 10 media interviews in the last 2 weeks on the topic, I think there's a need. So doing something free and then opening up conversation. If you want something custom, maybe I can come in and do a group coaching or something specific for your team. So it's just trying to, engage in dialogue and maybe open up conversation.
I think, Claire, that's brilliant, because you're right. You have been on the media, which you're really doing a great job of service. And I think that coming back to, I wanted to jump in when Sarah had asked about the free stuff and just sort of comment on that. I think that our responsibility as people who are thought leaders, people who have information that can actually help people, is to show up from a place of service. And so the truth is right now that yes, we're doing a lot of free, and it's because people they need the content and they need the information. And I don't believe people aren't buying, because I've been on the phone with the banks and we're working on deals on how my topic, like going right back into it, right, can actually work for them and serve their leadership. And so I think the way I'm looking at this is bad marketing before is worse marketing now. And so if you're showing up trying to, coming from a place of desperation, coming from you need to buy from me, as opposed to coming from a place of service. So the rule I put in place is that if your company is in financial trouble and you need what I can offer you, I will do it pro bono. And if you are still viable and you have a budget, I will gladly accept that abundance coming into my life, right? And so I think that it's a different rules for different people. And our ability to adapt and not be so hung up on what was the topic, and I don't mean jumping, we have to be in our expertise lane. We have to be doing the right thing that we can serve from, but coming from a place of service, I think, is where we can really shine, because people will remember how we show up in the worst times. And so if you're the person, I had one of my coaching clients, he's like, I got an email today saying, howdy, how would you like to use our product? And he's like, delete, just not the right intent. So I think, and the last thing I want to say, because I got a whole list, right? I heard the Advanced Selling podcast. If anybody has ever listened to them, I love them. They're amazing. And they said something that really inspired me and made me feel good. So I will share. They said, in the time of a depression or a recession, money doesn't disappear. It changes how it flows. And so this is the opportunity for every one of us to look at our business models and figure out, how do we catch a little flow? And I really believe the way we catch flow is by offering value and showing up from a place of service. And thank you for letting me have an audience after 4 weeks of being without one.
Yeah, Alison, that's exactly what I said.
I just wanted to share what I've been doing, because I've just been trying to talk to leaders just about what they're experiencing. So I do my podcasts, and I'm inundated with the amount of podcasts that I've done. So I'm just trying to kind of create a space to be heard more, and took the opportunity to write my book on my particular lane, just to kind of sit there and, and I'm in an accountability group, which has been phenomenal with Sarah. And so I think structure, along with continuing to build a business, is the best that I've found. And I'm amazed how I did an interview today with a leader, and an opportunity probably will come from there. So you don't know where it's going to come from. And I had no intention of discussing business, but I think just continuing to create, let people hear your voice, let them know about, and of course, I'm a mental health and wellness expert. Everybody's talking about mental health right now. But I'm just kind of putting out content and saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. I coach, I train, I speak. And I think it's planting those seeds, and then also writing the book on my particular areas, the best that I think I have control over, along with doing coaching.
Greg, I see your chat. I see that you have to go. I want to acknowledge you're spending all this time with us, 3 hours. They say that some of the best conversations at a convention and a conference happen in the hallways. So I feel like we've
Or
definitely
in the
had some
basement.
great conversations here too.
The basement.
In the basement.
Take care,
Greg,
everybody. Just
okay.
want to wish,
Bye, Greg.
just want to wish
Thanks,
everybody well. Have a great night. Hang in there. Still got more upswing to come. Bye.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for your leadership and your service.
I wanted to quickly comment on what Allison and Roxanne were just saying, because I totally agree that, to come of a place of service. I also think what Deborah was alluding to earlier, relationships are so important right now. And even if you're not like, what can I offer? How can I support? Which is so generic. Actually just checking in personally with people. I've been reaching out a few, both personally and professionally, just via video, because I think it's a lot more personal, and also inviting conversation. So, this is what I can do, or how can I be of service, as opposed to like, how are you doing? And let's have a conversation. I feel like this is an opportunity, as much as we can sometimes be intimidated by leaders and people who are extremely busy, this is a great equalizer, and everybody is open to having people reach out. And so I'm having like weekly Brave happy hour chats with various industries that I speak in, and just asking how they're doing. And you'd be surprised. It's sometimes the ones who are, leaders or have a lot of people around, don't necessarily have the space to be able to be open and honest and just like connect. So I think even if we're not, offering webinars here, there, and everywhere, there's still ways that we can connect and be in relationship, which is equally as important for what people need. And then secondly, doing videos and offering, these trainings are just an amazing opportunity to get more practice, right? And I totally agree with what Allison was saying, is that people will remember, how you are, and they can also see when you're like, oh, let me help you. What can I do? As opposed to, I thought of you when I read this article, happy to do, I don't know, whatever it is. So come from a place of service and be authentic in doing it. I had a quick question. I totally agree we shouldn't be changing our lane. I have someone who's asked me to speak to their local chapter, not a massive thing, but on how to stay positive and productive while at home. And productivity is not my area of expertise, but having some experience in connection and relationships and emotional intelligence and mental health, I'm spinning it with that. Is that bad if all of a sudden you have additional talks that you could potentially, engage in conversation, or if somebody's asked you to do something specific? Because I don't want to feel inauthentic, but I also know that I have things to share. So I just kind of wanted to get people's thoughts on that.
Carol, I'll speak up. Just knowing you both personally and professionally, I think, there's people that speak on this like Claire, right? But I think it has to come from a place of authenticity. And I think you have enough experience in your own journey, in your own struggles, in the like that vulnerability and that rawness that you can bring and share what you have done and what you have had to overcome in the areas of productivity, in the areas of mental health. I think that is something that, just again, knowing you personally and professionally, that can be valuable to that audience. So, I'm thinking, as long as it's authentic, as long as it's real for you, and you're not like, oh, I'm going to go talk about being a lumberjack and start pitching myself there. I think there can be value there. Those are my thoughts.
I would ask a lot more questions of the client, just to make sure you've got what they're looking to have in terms of takeaways for their audience. So I think that will help you answer whether you've got it or not, because you're an amazing, amazing speaker. You will inspire and motivate without question, but see whether they've got specific things that you want. And if you need a behind the scenes collaborator, just give me a call.
Thanks, Claire. Appreciate it.
I want to thank everyone. I slept at 2 and got up at 4, and I've been here for 3 hours. It has been amazing and well worth it. And thank you very much for making it convenient for us and giving us this discount. It was awesome. And I really, really, on behalf of PSAI, thank all of you and the organizers for giving us such a valuable 3 hours. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg Bala, 0 rupees for you. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a real honor and a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It was very much worth it. Thank you.
I am still seeing a few questions in the chat box. I don't know how relevant some of them are at this point. So Brig wanted to know, will our marketing collaterals need a total change? Do we expect a significant change in the topics that will emerge? Will some topics lose their significance altogether, given the current situation? Will we see more virtual conferences or virtual meeting registration options, or will they be live instead of being live? I'll throw this up, jump ball. Anyone want to take this?
So
Certainly
just as
the
you were saying that,
topics.
oh, sorry, go
Okay.
ahead, Greg.
Certainly on the topics, I wanted to know, because many topics may become irrelevant and a lot of new topics will become relevant, particularly immediately after the normalcy comes, what I call the new normal. People will be wanting to know lots of things that have changed the way people will behave. Consumer behaviors will change, international relationships will change, and in that, new topics may emerge. So anyone can throw some light on that.
I'm happy to just jump in. Okay, I'll go quickly. I think that certain topics and at certain times become more relevant based on what's happening. So, certainly topics related to resiliency, sort of managing, through a crisis or through disruption, those types of topics we're seeing a lot of demand for. And then if this continues on like this and people continue working remotely, certainly people have expertise in how you manage remote teams and that sort of thing. Those people are going to be in demand. Everything that happens through the last economic downturn, there were speakers who were busier because of what was happening. A lot of speakers' business was down there, a few that went up. So those are some of the things that I see, but I definitely, my advice to any speaker would be, don't try to figure out what topics are going to be popular and then read up on them and say that you're an expert on that. You just, stick to what you know, and know that if you do that, you protect your integrity, and then when things do come back, you'll be in good shape. If all of a sudden you revamp all of your marketing materials and your website and topics, based on every topic is COVID-19 in the subject, that's I wouldn't recommend that. I just think that that feels more like a move more out of desperation than strength kind of thing. So I just think you stick to what you know, but certainly you need to tweak it based on the times.
So I actually have a question for you, Martin, on that.
Sure.
So those of us who, and I think there's others on the call who have resilience as an expertise, I mean, that's what we've been teaching for years. So it's not out of the woodwork. It's not shocking, right? Not trying to ride a tide. How do you position yourself without being, I don't know what I'm, I don't know. I'm
looking like an opportunist.
Yeah.
Bandwagon jumper.
How does it work?
Yeah, I think it's just, demonstrating that credibility, right? That you've been speaking on these topics for however many years, and you've got testimonials, hopefully, that are specific enough that show that expertise. So I think that's what you got to, put, front and center. And, there's always going to be people who are sort of opportunists or bandwagon jumpers, but I think it's pretty clear, I think that, relationships are key as well. So, there's people who know you and know the work that you do and can speak to that. So I think that's really important.
There's a question. This is for Martin and Deborah. It's from Lauren. She had asked it previously and didn't have an opportunity to get to it. She says, regarding speakers having their presentations recorded, do you see the recordings being held by the corporations and being released internally? Or could this be a huge opportunity for speakers to develop really high quality presentations and create membership sites that include the keynote as well as live Q&A type element, then sell access to their content for a limited time?
Okay, I think I understand the question. So if I'm not, I apologize. But I think that, it's important as a speaker to maintain the intellectual property rights to your content. So you own your presentation. The company that hires you, that they don't own your content. They're just basically renting you for a period of time where you're sharing that. So I think it's got to be really clear in your agreements that you retain the ownership of your intellectual property. Having said that, I don't think it's right to do a paid engagement for a client who's paying you to do it and then take that presentation and go out and sell it to somebody else. I don't think that that's right. And I think that will, yeah. So, okay, so I may have misunderstood that part. But I think you could use a clip in a promo video or something, just like you would if you're creating your regular promo video. You're going to have clips of previous presentations, but I don't think you can sell that as a product. If that's, I'm not sure if I understand it, or you know, some type of subscription-based offering.
Sorry, and I guess what I meant was, if there, for those of us who do a similar presentation, and you were able to do that in really high quality, and then provide, you know, Q&A, and like we watch it together, and then I work with the people, and so on and so forth. If that was a style that you could see coming out of this,
I think it's possible. I mean, the thing that we say with our team is like, throw the playbook out, throw the old playbook out, because basically everybody's sort of making it up as we go. And I think the more creative we can be and the more interesting ways we can, you know, deliver the content, the better. I think that, you know, there's a resistance for a lot of clients to pay, you know, a good fee for something that's sort of stock, you know, like a sort of stock canned presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you're doing a Q&A at the end, maybe it works. So, you know, again, I think it may be worth trying. And I think at the end of the day, you know, maybe it's just because I studied economics in university, I don't want to feel like that was a waste of 3 years of my life, that the market will tell you whether you're right or not. So you may want to test it out. But I think that we actually have one client who did want to record it. Like, they wanted videos. They didn't actually want to do it live. So they wanted very customized video for them. And that, you know, that I think can work. But I think if it's just a general keynote followed by Q&A, my sense is that's going to be a tougher sell, but who knows? Maybe it works. It's worth trying.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is part of the strategy of your business model, your new business model as well. So if you start with yourself on what you envision this all to look for and present it to the client on how it works, or you know, beta testing it with them, at least start with you and your plan, what that looks like, what you envision would work for you. And yeah, and presenting it, like Martin said, you know, we're in the learning curve of all of this, and so are the clients. So starting with you to offer what that looks like to you, and tweak it based on what their, you know, what their needs are they're going to be able to express to you, will help you fine tune that.
Absolutely. The whole idea of co-creating. Here's what I'm thinking. What, you know, it's like creating a minimum viable product. So we're gonna do this. How would you like it different? You know, what value can I add? And then just learn from that and go to the next one, and learn from that and go to the next one. Thank you.
So I have a question for everyone. Is everyone reaching out to their customers right now? Everybody is? And if not, why maybe? Is there anybody that's not? I was just curious why.
I could speak to that.
I am getting in touch with my customers.
So for me, Deborah, you know, it's interesting. I'm just going to be vulnerable, because that's, so it's been a bit of a roller coaster for me. So just emotionally where I'm at, there was 1 week I was really sad, I was really angry, and those are two emotions that I don't have a lot of experience with. I'm not very comfortable with. I almost got in a fight with a guy in my lobby. Like, just last time I got in a fight was grade 4 with Sean Ward, and I still, you know, consider it a win on my part. But so because I'm on this roller coaster, there are times where, you know, in my social media, I'll reach out, I'll post, look at tons of engagement, and then the next day I'm like, watch the news or something, or I talk to someone and they're really struggling, and then I go down, and then I'm like, oh, I got to focus on community and supporting people that way. So for me, you know, prior to this, is like, I have this foundation that I'm standing. I know where the ground is now. I'm Stephen DeWitt. I'm a sexologist. This is what I speak on. I speak about sex. These are my target markets. This is how I speak. This is my avatar. And then all of that has disintegrated. So the two big things for me are, one, where is the ground that I stand on? I'm not quite sure where that is yet. Two, what is the need of the audience that I speak to? Because in my mind, sex at this point is on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, lower down. People are food, clothing, shelter, finances, health, for me, myself, my family, and then, you know, the people around me. they're not quite thinking about that. So I don't want to be tone deaf when I'm reaching out to people. And I'm hearing what other people say, just reach out, build those relationships, talk about different things. But for me, when I'm putting myself out there, it's, you know, it's day to day. Sometimes I'm doing it well. Sometimes I'm not doing it at all because I'm, you know, in my bed watching Tiger King.
Well, I asked that because that is what is going on in the speaking industry. So I don't want you to feel like you're alone. I've had some bad days and I've had some good days, and you're right, it has been a roller coaster. So being vulnerable right now is actually a strength. If you ever get a chance to watch Bree Brown's videos on vulnerability, you'll be able to go into it deeper to understand it, but it's okay. And I ask that again, because that is what is going on, not just in the speaking industry, but the meeting side too. Those social media posts, there's one that one group of hospitality folks from, again, line to back of the house, the leaders, and they're mad, they're angry, they're depressed, and they're asking for help. I mean, there's some that people are getting on the call with them and saying, are you okay? So you're not the only one feeling that way. So, and it's going to be okay to feel that way, especially for those that have been through it for the very first time. I know my dad is 85 and he's been through the Great Depression and war and everything. So he's handling it so much different, whereas I'm just sometimes a wreck over it. So thank you for sharing that. And if anybody else feels that way as well, it's okay.
Thank you.
It's really important to recognize that we're all grieving. Like, we're grieving a way that we knew our lives to be. And I think the challenge with grief is the fifth step of it is acceptance. And the problem is we don't know what we're trying to accept. So we can't even go through the process of grief because there are so many unknowns. And so the only thing that we can do is we can focus on the tasks, if we choose to do them, and allow ourselves to have the Netflix days and this king thing with the tiger. I don't even know what it is, but I know that at one point I'm going to get into it. Right?
I don't know, Martin. I started watching it. I've watched the first episode. I do not get it. Like, so I know you love it. I know Stephen loves it. I don't get it.
Allison, you won't like it. Don't worry.
Okay, fair enough.
You don't need to. Don't need to see it.
Stephen, I'd like to kind of invite you to think about, we're talking about December being the big baby boom. So one way that you could kind of talk about your topic is about how people could be engaging in this and bring in the relationship side of it, or even the humor side of it, because it's exactly what people need right now is something, some humor and some human connectedness in some ways that they can, right? In terms of people who are isolating at home. So you could bring some of that sort of topic into it. And for those in this community, what I've been doing with leaders in the first responder community, emergency health services, is reaching out and just having community corners. It's a free service that I'm offering. And basically, I also offer it to you. So I know we have CAPS peer support. So those of you who need more individualized, perhaps some attention, you can please reach out and connect with CAPS National and the peer support team to get connected there. But certainly if we just want to informally have a time where we're connecting on a regular basis, or even in a smaller group, however you guys want to do it, I'm here. And that's what I'm trying to do for many of the communities. And just talk about real life stuff. It doesn't even have to be just about speaking. Vince and I are going online and just talking about our aha moments. Like, I had no idea that I was coming off angry to him until he said, "Are you mad at me?" And I'm like, "No." And I realized it was fear. And I hadn't even really thought about it. So just sharing those aspects out with your audience and with your community, Stephen, when you're not having these fright moments, right? I think that's what people need to know, because as a professor, as a psychotherapist, I'm not all together all the time either. I don't even realize sometimes when I'm coming across a certain way, but that's what makes us all human. And that's the beautiful part of this whole scenario that we're going through together. Never have I ever seen in my lifetime the global community come together the way it has now. And it is showing us the worst of ourselves, but it is also showing us the best of ourselves. So hang on to that, because that's what's going to get us through.
And I'm going to have to go offline, but I want to congratulate you on saying that. I just want to let you know I'm proud of our speaking community at this time, because I've never seen so many new experts to the coronavirus, and to really engage and find out what's really going on. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen. Usually I think speakers just kind of just ride the wave and don't say anything or don't do anything. And I've seen so much proactiveness pertaining to this epidemic. So I just wanted to say congratulations to each and every one of you for being educated, staying on top, and having faith in your business, because I'm going through the same thing. So until then, I got a flight to catch. No, I'm just kidding. But I wanted to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I know I've been trying to get to your chapter several times. And so it was really great to know that I was able to join you all today. So thank you so much for everything. And hopefully someday, I'm sure someday, I'll be able to come up and see you all face to face.
We would love that, Deborah. Thank you so
Deborah.
much.
Thank you so much.
In every dark cloud, there's a silver lining, and
That's
your
right.
presence here today has certainly been a silver lining.
I hope so. And you've all, I've learned so much from you. It's a give and take situation. And again, we're all in it together.
We are all in it together. Thank you, Deborah.
I've got to run in a minute, but I got to run in a minute, but just a couple of quick things, and to echo, anyone who's not going through these emotions is not human. Like, given it's a global pandemic, right? Like, it's affecting everyone. So, you know, Stephen, I echo what you say, and it's human to have these feelings. If, you know, there's only one person I'm not sure if they're having these feelings, and unfortunately they occupy a position, you know, where I won't get into that, but you know, it's and it can be you can have good days and bad days, and some days within a day, you know, feel really optimistic in the morning, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, you kind of get a little bit down and anxious or whatever, and then you might feel better in the afternoon. Like, you can go through the spectrum even within a single day. So I would just say, like, anyone who's feeling that, obviously, I think we're all, you know, anyone who's human is going through that. It's impossible not to be. And then the last thing I'll just leave you with, this is specifically for Ron, Tiger King. The only way I can explain this is it's a phenomenon that is perfectly timed with this pandemic, because I think the attraction is, if you think your life is crazy right now and everybody's life is crazy, watch this show and you'll realize it's not that crazy. And I honestly think I think that if this show had dropped at any other time, it wouldn't be as huge a hit as it is. It's like, I think that we all sort of can watch that and go, you know what, as crazy as my life is, it's, at least I'm not one of those people, because that is just that shit crazy, excuse my language. So thank you so much for having me. And if I can help anyone with anything, just, you know, reach out. I think you guys, you know how to find me, or you know, Ron can put you in touch. But I just wish you all the best. And I know that everyone here wasn't planning on exiting this industry in the next year or two. So, you know, we'll see you guys around for a long time.
And Martin, we know that you're a survivor. You joined us at 6:30, just before 6:30, and now it's almost 10 o'clock. So we really appreciate you and your presence, and we are all in this together. Let's see what we can continue to do to support the entire industry as a whole. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, Martin. Stay safe.
Bye-bye. You too.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, let's say we wrap this up.
Hey, the Ron father, I concur.
Guys, you're all survivors.
Survivor photo.
The survivor photo. Well, the recording is still available. This is the recording, so somebody take a photo. This is recording.
Okay, picture. To put your videos on if you've got your videos off, so that we can like wave or something.
Okay, I'm taking a screenshot. Sammy Joe, put your when you're done. Sorry, I want to see your face, not your phone. Okay, smile.
Guys, I've already got your pictures already on LinkedIn. It's already there, a post to thank you, and the group pictures are already there.
You are
wonderful.
You're fast.
On LinkedIn. Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
And now we got Orlando's big guns. The big guns are out.
Yes, buddy.
What's going on? What's happening?
If you want Joy, follow Orlando's Instagram. Him and his wife are TikToking and all kinds of cool things. So
awesome.
can't be unhappy when Orlando's in your life.
Hey, listen, we have to do what we can to stay positive. And, you know, we talked about it earlier, that the way that we show up and acknowledge what we're feeling, Stephen and everyone else, gives other people permission too. Because a lot of people are feeling like, I shouldn't feel like this, man. Like, I'm alone. I'm the only one. Like, look at what she's doing. Look at what he's doing. Well, we're all going through it like that. So we TikTok and do a lot of different fun things to expend energy in a way that might be uplifting for someone else, because you don't know what it's going to be. So showing up and having this community is one huge thing for me and translates to our family. So
Much love, Orlando.
Right back at you.
All right. Survivors, I love you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing us your energy, your presence, and continue to stick around for over 3 hours. You guys really are the best, and I'm really grateful, you know, that we could do this. We could co-create this together. Stephen DeWitt, Dr. Durex, amazing journey in making this happen. And thanks to the CAPS Toronto team.
Ron, I'm very, very proud of what your dad did. You did a super job. Put everything perfectly together, seamlessly. And I think this gives an opportunity for all of us to realize that this is the space we're going to be in, the virtual space, and it's going to grow in a very big way. And we're all going to be succeeding if we focus on that aspect of it, bringing technology to the forefront, embracing the millennials and their quirkiness, and going ahead. There's lots of room to grow. So out of all of this, I see positivity. I know we're going through the dumps, and I'm an ancient mariner. I've been kicked around a lot and seen a lot of trouble, but tomorrow is always another day. So hang on to that and hug your teddy bear, and I think you're going to see sunrise tomorrow. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Bella. So just to respond to Perry, will we meet more often? I think there's certainly a possibility. So stay tuned and you know, check the emails and check the Facebook, the CAPS Experts Who Speak Facebook group as well, because I think that we are needed together as a community now more than ever.
Yeah. Agreed.
Have a great night, everyone.
Okay.
Stay
Bye,
safe.
everybody.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Bye. Cheers.
Please look up your Facebook and LinkedIn. It's all there.
Thank you.